Meeting to order. It's 7:01. First item on the agenda, additions, deletions to the agenda, or any public comment? Don't think, no. I think we're good to go. So we have a couple of sort of business items to start off. First one is a request to approve the delinquent tax report as of November 30th, 2017. I'm not on there. This is done on an annual basis. Do you want to, anything to say?
I really don't. I mean, Missy is the one. She will be here in a little while, but this is just, like you said, this is an annual, something you do on an annual basis. It's, this reflects that not as of November 30th of 2017, the number of delinquent taxes, the amounts that we had. So it just needs your signature.
Did we get it in an agenda packet earlier?
This wasn't something that would go out. This didn't go out in Dropbox.
Okay, but is it a list of?
There's a list,
Yeah,
yes.
I thought we saw something like that, or
Normally, you think?
normally we would
Yeah.
have seen. The,
Missy, I asked Missy about
Yeah.
it to see, and she
Yeah.
recommended not to have it out
Okay,
on there, but it's here
okay,
that you can pass it around.
yeah, but it
Okay.
is a public document. Yeah.
So-
I assume, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
I mean, we should,
probably.
it might be good to say what the delinquencies are and how it compares to,
Yeah, we could ask
ask Missy when she comes.
Missy when she
Yeah,
comes,
okay.
is it any more than usual? I would
Okay.
guess, it says here $331,000, but I'm gonna guess that first month, there's always a lot.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
I-
people
I
get
thought I
another
would-
message and go,
It's probably
uh-oh.
changed out now
Right.
from
Right.
November 30th as well.
Yeah.
So when you look at the town report, it goes back and it shows the amounts for each year
Right,
that are still outstanding.
the amounts and the number
Yeah,
of properties.
right.
Yeah, okay.
The next item on the agenda is a request to appoint an authorized representative for water infrastructure financing programs.
And so this is just a formality of the town administrator is typically the one that signs it. They still have Trevor on there. And so they sent an email to Missy stating that we needed to have this form done. And so the select board is the one who signs it. And then I'll email that back.
Okay. And the next item is the start of our formal review of the fiscal year 19 budget. So we will talk about capital budget proposed transfers. Then we will review 4 good sections of the budget: the town clerk's section, the recreation budget, police, and then the fire budget. So we want to start with the capital
So,
budget piece.
Yeah.
There was I think, a very good memo, I think, from Alex that captured our discussions a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that was helpful, I think, to sort of put some borders around the topic, I think, and where we thought we were moving.
Yeah, and it was a combination of not only a recap of what you guys talked about as a select board, but then he also brought it to the planning commission. And so, and that was feedback. It was also combined with feedback from the planning commission.
Right.
And so in your packet, what I have in your packet, I haven't made any changes to the capital budget because you guys are still discussing what we're looking for. A little more direction on, especially with the budgets we're talking about tonight, is the capital transfers for FY19. And so I put in the narrative, I highlighted in red font the scheduled FY19 transfers. And I went through budget by budget on those. We're only discussing tonight the clerk, treasurer, recreation, police, and fire. And within those, it's only, I believe, recreation, police, and fire that have proposed FY19 transfers. And within those department head meetings that we had, where you guys each adopted a department, there were some other suggested ones. So those aren't in there yet, but that's something we can discuss.
So this is the first time I get to see this document, I think, the one with the highlights, which is helpful.
Yeah. So that was part of the narrative you've seen. I just
Yep.
highlighted the actual FY19 so you can, so they sort of stand out.
So what agenda item number is this that we're looking at?
It's just this initial capital one, so
Oh,
the five.
5, where we're talking about the capital budget proposed transfers.
5A? Or
Yes. Well, 5.
5C?
Oh, the document itself?
Yeah.
Just a second.
The top of the top of the list.
Well, my list,
Not ready to drop.
my list is different.
Huh.
CIP.
Fiscal year 19.
No, that's Alex's memo.
Yeah, FY19-FY23.
Yeah.
CIP
Oh, okay.
narrative.
It's the very bottom of
Yeah.
mine. Okay. Got it. Okay.
So the highway tends to have most of them.
Right. Yeah. Definitely the bulk is in highway.
Yeah, and well, when we get to highway, we can talk a lot about
Yeah.
that.
Right.
The police budget has some vehicles, leases.
Well, one of the things that we talked about that maybe is generic to all of this, are we talking now or are we, yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Was the reason that we got into doing leases, kind of, was that if we had a lemon, we could turn it in. And it seems like that has, we should look very closely at the lease arrangements to see whether that still is a possibility. Because otherwise, there may not be, we should look closely at whether it's worth it to do these leases or the loans, because essentially it's not a lot different. Certainly on some vehicles, we're not just turning them in when the lease is over. We're going to be using those vehicles for an extended period, lease to purchase, and so I think we want to better understand why we're leasing and when it makes sense to lease into loan or to loan, to get a loan, or to be able to buy something outright, so that we're not doing either one, and we're putting more in the capital budget so that when the time comes, we can just purchase it.
Any other comments on it? I mean, we've talked about the lease versus a direct purchase and the fact that it would be hard to catch up to make that switch, but it's possible you could decide to choose one or two vehicles and begin that process,
Yeah.
or delay the change for 1 year and
Yes.
put that
Yeah.
into savings.
Yeah.
One change we had this last year where the fire department, we did I guess it's the lease for the SCBA's. It is a lease, I guess, yeah.
But those are something that we have to replace regardless of whether we've used them. And what's the lease period?
Have to look back on this. Yeah.
Till 2022, I think, final payment. And there were some advantages of doing it as far as maintenance and other things.
15-year warranty.
Yep.
But we have to replace them every 10 years.
But they expect they will extend the newer models out, so we won't have to replace them at 10. We'll be able to go to the full 15 because they're under 100% warranty.
Do we have that in writing from them?
And these are new upgradable, software-driven air packs where the other ones weren't. So it's already built to they're already built to the 2018 standard, even though it's not in effect yet, so.
But will that be the
Pushing
standard
out.
in 2028?
I'm sure it'll change by the manufacturers. What they've been doing when they first started out, was the first cycle of the 2008 air packs were carbon fiber tanks were the first time they've been being used, and they started out at 5 years. And then they finally extended them to 7 years, and then they went to 10 years. So, you know, as the technology's come along, they've given it some time. And, you know, I think that we were able to get pretty good trade-in for them, which is one of the things we need to capture somewheres along the way in the budget process. Because if you figured out how we'd been funding for the replacement, because we had been putting money aside for a while, and we actually had a shortfall of about 1 year, which was just about what we sold them for, but I'm not sure how that all will transpire. So,
But we don't have to be talking about that until 2022?
Right, right.
Okay.
Any other discussion on it? We'll hit these as we go to the different department budgets. So we can move to the clerk, treasurer, delinquent tax. Missy?
Am I supposed to go up?
Yes, come on up.
Seat of honor.
Raise your right hand.
Yes.
We had a question about the delinquent tax report for this year. And were there any surprises, or was it about what you typically get that first month?
Pretty typical, I would say. Yeah, I looked back at, the last several years, and it's always in that ballpark. And actually, I looked right now today. Is this thing not working?
I think
Whatever.
so. Yeah.
Anyway, as of December 2016 versus where we are like today, we're actually we're at a lower number of delinquencies. So this year's looking better than last year.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
it doesn't vary that much from year to year. A little bit when you have a really bad economic downturn, you might have a little bit higher rate of delinquency, but yeah.
All right, so we can go over your budget items. Not a lot of changes this year.
No. Really, typically the only thing that changes pretty much at all is elections, yeah. I think one thing that's different is we decided to take the delinquent tax legal line number and just kind of roll it. I think that was your guys' suggestion anyway, to just include it in the legal budget if we even need anything, because I don't very often even, use that, so. Yeah, and elections are down. The professional services budgeted amount is lower because we have, actually, let me just say, that was 16, 17. Sorry, it's higher because we have 3 elections in 2018 versus 1. So, and that's just really for programming. Yeah, there's town meeting and then
One in November.
August,
Oh, in
the
August.
primary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Primary.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have any particular questions?
Is there anything that you would think that might someday end up in a capital budget from your office? In terms of needing more room in the safe or?
In the vault.
In the
Yeah.
vault?
Yeah. Yes, at some point that will probably happen. We are scanning all of our land records as they come in now. We'll still have to have paper copies, but there are things you can do like move, South Burlington, for example, has moved to a smaller book, so they take up half as much room. Because
Forward, we would use smaller
Well, I mean, we could. We're not probably ready to do that.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
It's just the physical size?
yeah, just the
And
physical
printing-
size.
The printing is the same?
No, the printing would be smaller.
Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe there's a lot of white space there.
Yeah. So we still have a fair amount of room in there.
Okay.
Yeah, for the time being. So
Weren't there funds that are put aside for that? Or did we?
there are. I mean, we have records restoration funds that we have a fair amount of money in. And
Automatically gets, we don't budget. We don't pay.
Right.
It doesn't come out of the town budget.
Exactly.
It comes out of the state.
it comes out of the dollar per page that people pay for recording.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and I think once we maybe have a year of scanning under our belts, where we may get some computers and then try to maybe for the searchers to come in and use, which is what, as people go to electronic land records, that's what they do. They come in and they search on the computer, and then they can just print the document right off the computer.
And that's going forward. You're not scanning previous years.
Well, we probably will try to do that. And, yeah, at some point, when we have a downtime, whenever that is.
So that's something that you and Cheryl do, or is that something we hire up to have done?
No, that's something we've been doing. Well, I mean, when I say we, I mean her,
Translation.
since she does all the
So
land
somebody
records.
looking
But
to do some community service might,
yeah,
come
something,
to you and-
something like that. Yeah, yeah. So,
And aren't those public documents?
yeah.
So you could, once they're, at some point, you won't have to come here to get on the computer to look at them.
Presumably that might be down the road. I mean, I do know that's something the state is looking at. Yeah. So that's
And
conceivable.
would that be through the Secretary of State's office? Or?
Potentially,
yeah.
yeah. Or the state archivist, which is part of the Secretary of State's office, yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions on that part of the budget?
There's no printing for elections at all?
No, because we used to pay a printer to print the ballots, but now the way it works, it all just comes out of that, the professional services.
Okay.
So the same people that program the machines also make the ballots so that they're readable by the machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a few lines in here that have zero, and they have for quite a few years. I don't know if makes sense
Yeah.
to just eliminate those.
I have some lines through them,
Okay.
so yeah, hopefully we'll get rid of them. We've been doing that, I've been trying to consolidate everybody's budgets a
yeah.
little bit to get rid of obsolete line numbers, so.
Is there any reason to think about not using NIMRIC? Or that's what we do and what everybody does and
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's actually incredibly reasonable to
Yeah.
use. I mean, we have all the software, they do all the updates for free, we
has it gotten
download-
a little bit more nimble? I mean,
I
just,
think it's very nimble.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah.
I just used to hear that people you couldn't do anything on it. So this was a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it a lot.
You like it? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
very much. And I think pretty much everybody in the
Okay.
state uses it. And actually, they are now even being hired by the state of Vermont for all like the reappraisal stuff and
Okay.
things like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, their maintenance contract is really reasonable, compared to a lot of other software. I think, so.
And you just can call them up when you have a,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
As long as it's under 15 minutes. So we watch the clock, and when it gets to 14, we say, well, goodbye, I'm going to call you right back.
Somebody walked in and called you back.
Right.
So it's probably worth saying on the wages there, that's a 3% change. So that's shown across the board on the budget, unless it's not, and we'll bring that
Okay.
up if it's not.
Yeah, I
That's
always,
just a placeholder for that.
yeah.
Very boring budget.
I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Next.
On to recreation.
Come on, next lucky person.
lot more exciting, maybe a little.
And you had a write-up.
I just,
Yep.
so. The only change or the only thing that's on the table, I think, for this year, for this budget, is in regard to the mowing at the Bissonnet Rec Field area. There has been discussion, we've been discussing the option or possibility of having mowing done specifically at the Bissonnet Rec Field instead of it being bundled into Wall. And I think that became apparent when, it's $6,000 to mow that area.
And that's for the year, for those fields, just those fields.
For the one completed field and the mowing on the perimeter of the access
Okay.
road into it. When the second and third field are completed, it would obviously be more. So at least double. So I think whenever you get to a crossroad where there's a large increase, you have to start thinking, is it time to, continue the bundling? Is it time to think about purchasing a mower, having someone do the mowing, keeping a little more tabs on it, parlaying, some other things like aligning the fields and the maintenance with the rec fields that are coming on board. Half of them are coming on board this spring. There'll be more work there. And I feel that I've definitely gotten some feedback from people saying, wow, Wall comes in once a week, whether it needs it or not, depending on, there's no variance in regard to if it's rainy, if it's dry. You go by in July and August and you see the mowing and the dirts and there have been some comments about that. So I have started looking into finding someone to mow the fields. Tom Giroux had submitted a bid to mow, and we had done some research on pricing out mowers, the commercial grade mowers that Wall uses, and thinking about instead of spending the $6,000 increase on the mowing costs in the facility, recreation facilities maintenance budget, purchasing the field, paying someone to mow at 30, for that rate, which would be significantly less. And so on my explanation, I did the budget where, we have the $6,000 in the rec facilities maintenance budget. It's the $6,000 for Wall. And then I also showed an option to pay Tom Giroux $3,600 to do the mowing, which would be equivalent to 24 mows for a 6-month season, with a purchase of a commercial grade mower in the range of $10,000. So obviously that would be a one-time purchase of equipment. There's also an option for storage with Brad Weiner, which would be also adjacent to the Bissonnet Rec Field area, so that there wouldn't be a trailer option. So it's just something for us to think about. For obviously there's an increase with the purchase of the mower, but a significant savings with the mowing. There's also a little more attention to detail with the fields, the lining, the bundling. So that's my crossroads, or the recreation. Yes. The best case scenario, which is if I waved a magic wand and I got every single hour from 4 to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, 8 hours on Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday from May till the end of October. If I got every single piece filled, would be about $20,000. That's the best case scenario. if I subtracted out the recreation usage for the rec department, if I was more real with myself about really the potential, I mean, I think it's probably closer to 8 to 10. So, but that said, you know, the other discussion is, you know, how much will an organization like, for example, Iroquois Soccer Club pay to rent fields when they've paid nothing to this point, and it's also a smaller organization. So, I mean, those are things that I'll be wrestling with. And area recreation departments I share their tale of woe where they have, you know, other organizations in town utilizing fields. It's harder sometimes to collect the revenue for rentals, but you know, we'll see how that works. So yes, to answer your question, indeed, there is some revenue, you know, rental potential for sure. There's also the Quadra benefit concert. You know, there's certainly a lot of fundraising that's been going on up to this point, and will continue. And I know Tom can speak to that specifically, but I do feel like we're a little bit at a crossroads with the mowing. And it's, you know, certainly a decision that we have to make for this budget for next year. And then when the second field and then the baseball diamond comes on board for the following year, there'll be even more.
Well, I think another option is to also put it out to bid. We haven't put it out to bid. I mean, Wall is not the only company that does mowing. And I think it's behooves us to, like on any equipment that we're buying or services that are being provided, we should put together a bid package and specify it of what we're looking for, and you can spec out, you know, that it doesn't need to get mowed weekly, and that you're looking for a certain length of grass, you know, that kind of thing. And so many cuts, yeah. I mean, there's times when you could be having to be mowing more than 6 months.
So the Wall contract is all the mowing for the town. So
Yeah.
Yep.
that would mean every department or all the cemetery, everything
Yep.
would be.
Well,
So
is it one
mine is one-
contract? Is it one
No.
contract? I think it's two contracts. The cemetery is a different contract than this one.
The Wall, I know Missy just left, but I
No,
was-
she's here.
Oh, sorry. So is it, I thought I saw you go by. So is Wall, when you get the bill, is it for everything altogether?
No, it's broke, it's two
It's
separate
broken.
bills. The
So the
cemetery
rec department-
contract is one bill.
Okay.
And then the town mowing is another bill, but it's broken out. I mean,
Okay.
I break it out because I know what the breakdown is. Yeah.
I think what are
So-
you trying to say, you're wondering if you can separate and have like a bid that would just be for rec fields versus the rest of the town?
Right, I mean, I don't know if the rest of the town wants to, I mean, I don't want to get into that.
Well, it's
But
the
you
rec
could do
fields,
that.
it's Lyman Park, I mean, it's pretty much rec fields, that's what they mow.
No,
No.
it's not, no, there's town properties,
Oh, the-
like the parks and then, you know,
Yeah.
various
The
things.
rec portion
Town
is-
mowing.
The town, the
Yeah.
rec part is actually quite small. It's pretty much this field, the town hall field, and Lyman, basically 2 months of the summer, July and
Yep,
August.
yep.
And pull out an
Yeah,
invoice right
yeah.
now.
Well, I mean, I just
So it's
think
a
that
small
I've talked
piece.
about
Yeah.
this before.
Yeah.
We really, I mean, it's,
I would agree that it seems like we could bundle it all up and go to Wall and go to one or two others.
Yeah.
And, but that, you know, that doesn't mean the idea of looking to do some ourselves, that could also be considered. But it would be good to
I mean, I
pull
think we
that.
really want to understand if we took on an employee, the maintenance, you know, what other equipment we would be buying and what.
Workers' comp, there's a
Yeah,
lot
workers'
that goes
comp,
with
and
it.
I mean, lining equipment, if we're gonna be doing if we already have the equipment to do the lining on the fields. You know, what's the total package of basically starting another department, or adding to the rec department in terms of maintenance of our rec fields? And, you know, do we have a parks and recreation department, so it's all the other little stuff, and we have another employee? Does it include, I mean, I think that's a policy thing that we really should be, maybe we're not going to solve it this year, but, during the next year, we might want to be thinking about how we can meet all of our needs for our buildings and facilities, and which includes the rec fields.
I think the position or this piece, I just want to make sure you understand what it would be. This mowing would be about 1 to 2 hours a week, so it's not like some big piece of an employee. As far as the lining, I mean, I do have a liner where, I mean, it's small, it's not like a big thing, but I just want to make sure you understand, it's not like, oh, it's a 15-hour-a-week position, it's
Well, no, but
smaller and, a smaller step before,
It's really not much different than what we're doing right now. with
it's just,
sidewalk plowing and the plowing of the parking lots.
Right, but I'd like to think about it in terms of what are all our needs.
Yeah, I think to what you're speaking to
So
is-
I can appreciate, and Tom Giroux is willing to do it, and it's $3,600 represents 2 hours a week for 6 months.
about that, whatever it takes to mow,
Yeah. But we're storing it in a place where, we've talked about needing a storage facility for our goals and all of our other equipment, so, I think it's behooves us to, I mean, and how, that mower, I mean, the.
FY19 capital budget and FY19. FY19.
So we would be purchasing a mower. And,
Our comic relief for the meeting.
yeah. Purchasing a mower, storage, maintenance, yeah, so. And in the purchasing the, I mean, what I was gonna say is like, the companies that do the mowing use the life expectancy on those mowers is very different if we're only using it a couple hours a week versus those guys, but, I'd like to know what the, $10,000 investment, how long we would
I can
have.
give you my opinion as somebody who runs them.
Yeah.
I think you're talking, on a field like this, it's really flat, really easy to mow, you're talking a minimum of 15 years.
Yeah,
A minimum. So it's, I mean, I really think it's a good idea, because what you're getting with landscapers is you're getting speed. They just want to go, they want to get it done. Whereas this facility is built to such a standard that you want to pay attention to the details. You don't want them just ripping it up and going.
but then
that
why
route.
wouldn't we want them to do our other fields as well?
not the same standard.
It's not the same standard, and if you start doing we did originally, but then you're talking about a trailer, you're talking about another truck to transport, or you're probably talking about other insurance issues. So we thought we'd start with this step, and then see where it leads with buildings and facilities, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
Because I mean, Wall does a fine job on most of the parcels, but this particular parcel, we really want to pay attention to what's going on. We want to make sure it's done right.
The Conservation Commission used to pay somebody to mow Japrags once or twice a year. I don't see it in their budget this year. So I don't know if I know they're cutting down on the mowing. I don't know if they're doing it themselves or if they're hoping that the town's going to take that over.
I don't know, but this
well,
machine-
the conservation,
This is,
this isn't for mowing the fields, no, for
this is a
sure.
lawnmower.
Yeah, I mean, the town tractor for mowing the roadsides could do it, but it's,
I mean, I think,
I mean, I don't mind-
I'm open to the idea. I think we ought to understand really what the cost is. So, if it's 48, how many times we're gonna mow? 48 times, and it's 2 hours?
24 times.
24 times.
months. So once a week for 6 months.
It's gonna average out, like
24
you said.
mows.
Some weeks you're not gonna mow it at
Right.
all. Other weeks you might mow it twice, depending on what's going on.
Yes,
So
that's
for
true.
24, I think it's a pretty good average.
Yep.
And it's about 2 hours or 3 hours. It's around $50 an hour, if it's 3 hours each time. and,
Yeah,
you know, so
somewhere
I
in
think
there.
what we ought to know is what the total cost is, because it's gonna, it's, he's not a volunteer.
So it's
an
36,
employee.
yep, so it's
gonna have,
$3,600.
You know, there's gonna be all the costs associated with an employee. So that would be, social security and underneath workers' comp and all that. So we should get a full costing of what it would be.
Well, unless it's I mean, I think that's where we get into
Is it a contractor?
Is he a contractor and therefore?
Then he needs insurance.
He needs insurance, yeah.
Which he has, supposedly.
Oh, well, then we
he has
don't have to count that, but we do have to factor in.
Well,
the-
I mean, I
yeah.
think this is, you know, this is a step to being more of a professional position. Then it needs to have all the pieces in place, because Tom won't be doing this forever, and so somebody else will be able to step in and take this and maybe expand the role and do the other fields. I don't know, at some point.
I doubt he has workers' comp insurance, honestly, but maybe he does. But just because I know that it's pretty expensive. And that is, if you're hiring a subcontractor, that is something that our insurer requires a subcontractor to have.
So we should at least get the full cost. I get the idea that there'll be, you know, a certain level of quality expected and care. And then I think I agree with Andrea 100%. Whether this parcel's included or not, we should go out for the entire piece, and that would require the scope of work, how many times, and what pieces of property, which I assume somebody's done at one time and measured all the areas that get mowed, and then go out and get it bid.
Well, usually you don't. I would say that really you would identify the parcels, and then it's up to the contractor to go out and look, and
Yeah,
they
but
come
you-
up with how long they're going to take.
Put
But
it
we
on a
say
map.
what's- Yeah, put it on a map, yeah.
And here are the
Yeah.
requirements.
I think the Cemetery Commission has been discussing also doing bids because, you know, I
I'll
don't think that's
contact
happened in a
Glenn
while.
on that.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good idea, get bids.
Yeah.
But some of that, like I said, only a small portion of it is
Oh, yeah, that would just,
Rec-
yeah, right,
rec controlled.
yeah.
And from my standpoint, you know, Jen, if you wanted to get bids on your own thing, that's perfectly fine too. I mean, if, you know, I thought you were sort of maybe asking that question in the beginning. It doesn't all have to be bundled together.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pursue all of the parcels, I would just
No,
pursue,
right.
no offense, but
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to focus on the rec department.
Yeah.
And you could help Jen, Renee could probably help Jen figuring out what's the best way, subcontractor or employee. It's very similar to the plowing situation we have right now,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and those people are paid as employees.
Right.
You know,
Right.
this, not many hours. And,
No.
you know,
Right.
yeah.
Do you have any other questions? The budget,
Well,
pretty similar.
I guess a potential capital is some kind of, you know, structure for the, we
the
were talking
future,
about needing a
yeah.
place to store everything, and it seems like we should be putting that in a budget, capital budget. Finishing the rest of the rec fields. I mean, if this is a serious thing that the town wants, then I just believe it should be part of the budget.
Well, it
Doesn't
is,
mean we
there's
can't-
5,000 in
It is
there.
in the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, but, I mean,
And the storage.
the storage shed is too? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do we have an estimate on the cost of finishing the other fields?
I'm working on that as we speak. I asked
Okay.
the contractor to just tidy it up, update it. I think we're fine, so the $5,000 will come in handy. Hopefully it's not necessary. But we're gonna keep it in there and then we'll build toward the storage and bathroom facility down the road.
Okay. And Nothing on the, I guess I'll look at the tennis courts and all that stuff are all okay?
Yes, at this point, they
Okay,
are.
so we're not putting anything into,
We're not.
okay, I just,
There's a placeholder in the narrative, but nothing has been
okay.
Right.
put aside.
Actually, this spring and summer, Tom did a ton of work on the courts because we had so many flash floods, so all of the rain washes all the gravel and the dirt. And actually, the beginning of this season, I had a shovel and a wheelbarrow, and I was shoveling caked on, dried on mud off the court. So it was, it took a while to make them even usable. But the surface is decent. The cracks are, it's pretty decent. It's just the ongoing struggle of the location of them. Everything washes down the hill. I don't think there's much. A broom, yeah,
It's a segue.
yeah. So, no, I didn't put anything in for the courts.
Okay.
They seem to be okay.
Let's get painted every so often.
They do. Yep. I did some pickleball lines, I think 2 summers ago.
Not the total surface.
Yes, upon occasion. We had it, I can't remember the last time it was done, but actually, the courts are, after it was power washed and kind of, we finally got all the mud and everything off, they were actually in pretty decent shape. And a lot of the weeds and all the poison parsnip that was on the edge, Tom was able to clear away, which he did as a volunteer. So it was great.
So the line item rec facility maintenance is the mowing?
That does include the mowing.
Okay.
The 10,565 for the Town Hall field, Lyman Park for 2 months, United Church field, which I won't really need to use anymore, and then the Bissonnet Rec field.
So that's the line item that says 18,555.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So that's like the whole kit and caboodle in the
Yep.
the little narrative. It has everything in there.
Okay.
And that's the increase there is.
The one full completed field at the Bissonnet Rec field.
Yeah.
That's not an increase.
Yeah, that's. I
Actually,
see
that was in the year
Yeah, that's in
before.
there. Yep.
Yes.
Yep, but that's that jump.
Right. That's the jump.
And the computer program thing that you got is working
That's
out?
working?
Oh, it's great.
Oh, good.
It is so great. It saves so much time. It is, I can't even tell you. It's so efficient. I know Missy was saying how much she liked NIMRIC. I love myrec.com. It is singularly in 13 years, probably the best thing that I've ever done to improve my life day to day working here. I'm serious. It
Jen
is
is actually able to offer quadra tickets
online.
online through that,
Yes.
through my rec. So
Yes.
that's a
Good.
big bonus
It's huge.
for not just that, but for any
Yeah.
Right.
event.
No, it's really, really helpful. It's really helpful for me to kind of log in and get an idea of, even for example, someone saying, hey, can you print me out just everything I did this year? I want to get this done for taxes. Bing, 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 print, email, done.
Wow.
It's got everything. It's so efficient. I mean, the amount of time that I spent creating lists and rosters and just information, it's amazing. And anytime I have a question or if I'm trying to figure something out, even at the VRPA conference at Lake Maury in October, they had a user session. It was an hour and a half with MyRec. And what was so great is this particular session, there were probably 12 people in the session. I would say 10 of them were single employee departments. It was so helpful. And we all agreed after 90 minutes, we said next year, we need 3 hours. There's so much that this software can do. I don't even know if there are enough years
It's a
left.
sport in itself, huh?
It is. It really- Anyway, no, I can't sing enough praises about it, and I can't thank you guys enough.
That's good
Taxpayers.
that's working out.
Yeah.
And, I'll say at the same time, I mean, the rec department over the last 20 years, 10 years, and 5 years continues to sort of expand in a lot of different places. We get to look at the mailing that comes out that says these are all the things that are going on. Where do you see your position or this department in 5 years or in 10 years? I mean, Andrea said maybe it's parks and rec where, because now we don't really have anybody managing parks necessarily. What do you see in 5 years or in 10 years?
Well, just on the rec part.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think what's so interesting for me is that different people move to town, they have different ideas, and, sometimes, people have an idea and you'll say, okay, I know you're from a really large area. This is a town of 4,600 people, it's great to reach for the stars, because if we never do that, we never have anything. But I do think when you get people from different areas that move to the area, they have different ideas, and then you couple that with saying, okay, how can I work within this constraint financially and facilities and that sort of thing. So, I want to say more growth, but I don't feel like growth is the right word. All I can think of is water kind of filling in cracks. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel for everything. It's like, what do we want? What do we like? We have this vibrant piano program in Hinesburg. I have 44 kids playing piano. For piano, okay. It's because we tend to have a more musical, artistic demographic in town. I like to think that we're kind of a chameleon. We're serving what people kind of want. We have to be somewhat practical about what people want. Like, okay, I can't have a Ferris wheel in town, but, what do we have? What do people want? And so I guess that's what I see for the future. What do residents want? What's feasible? Who can volunteer? Who can fundraise? What can we offer people? It's not necessarily just more growth, it's fill the niche. What do people want? So, I guess that's what I see in 5 years. We all have to be fiscally responsible every day. How do we bring cool programs or options to people with what they want that's feasible?
And, certainly Tom Giroux is probably the top volunteer for the rec.
He is.
Are you getting enough other volunteer to get the basics done?
I was really impressed this basketball season with our coaches. I think it was pretty clear. I didn't have to ask or beg. I had people coming forward. I have new people. This fall, I have a new family that just moved to Hinesburg this year, and the father reached right out right away. I'm new. I want to be involved. I want to coach. I'm impressed with people's offers of assistance. Now, that said, there are some seasons where I'm pulling my hair out a little bit and saying, I need coaches. I need something. But I've been pleasantly surprised this year with the coaching and the volunteering. And maybe it's the communication. If I send out a blast saying I need some more people, we have X number of children, we have to have X number of adults to make this more effective. I can offer some training and, that sort of thing. The clinics are great. And lots of times it's just giving people some confidence saying you can do this. Like, it's not that hard.
So,
But-
they're helping to train coaches, people who
Or-
might not be able to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to have played at the collegiate level to coach kindergarten soccer. You just have to be able to run around and laugh and be enthusiastic. Obviously, the skills are important, but
A few years ago, we were talking about a storage shed, and now you're using local storage, I think. Is that working out okay?
I have to confess it is. I'm using Lyman storage.
Yeah.
It's really convenient. It's dry. It's really safe. I'm not afraid something's going to fall on me or I'm going to step in something. It is really helpful.
Meaning you're out of this building entirely?
Yes. That, yes, we got everything out of the vestry.
Vestry.
That was a big project. So Lyman right now is working well. It's dry, it's safe, it's efficient.
So where's that rental in here?
There's a line item, I think.
It's in the facilities maintenance
Okay.
bundle. It's 840.
Oh, it's not in the rec?
It's in the, it's right
Oh,
below.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It's
see.
bundled in
Okay.
that 18,555
Okay, thank you.
in the narrative. I know.
Can't decide whether I should look at the budget or look at the narrative.
I
guess.
think the narrative is,
Okay.
for
Going
me,
back to that.
I look at the budget and it just confuses me,
Okay.
but the narrative makes sense, probably
Okay.
because I wrote it.
Okay,
So yes, that's the Lyman storage.
okay.
And you know, the good opportunity, I have to confess, as much as it was kind of a nightmare going through that storage, it did force me to purge and go through. There's definitely things that had been there a really, really, really long time. And so I have a good feel of what I have. And I know where everything is now. And I've gone through everything and disposed of the things that were really, really in rough shape. And gave some things away, you know, donated.
So Jen, I realize all these items are covered in your revenues. But in
Right.
17, the actuals for youth programs and adult programs were way over what was predicted.
Yes. Yep.
Is that because you're so busy?
Yeah, well, the youth programs are, for example, you know, the arts and crafts, you know, the choir program, the piano, the horseback riding. It's all those after-school programs, not sport-related. So the revenue is going to be higher for that.
Right.
And then the adult program did a big jump because I had been offering the early morning group fit strength class, 2 sessions, you know, 5:15 to 6 to 6:45. So I think that's why I had a big jump with the adult programming that year. But yes, you're right. And we've run into that for a lot of years where the youth program actual is really high and adult is really high. And so
It's just a little deceiving for those who don't look at budgets all the time. You see
it
that
is.
expense, but it's all covered on the other side
yeah,
of the budget.
it is deceiving. You're right.
Right.
Yep. It's just not my wanton spending.
Are there any more questions? So I think, I don't know, I'll look at the rest of the board. I mean, I think we heard just a little more detail on the possibility of doing the new rec fields internally, and the understanding there'd be some upfront costs for equipment, but it looks like potentially in the end it wouldn't cost more, it might cost less, but we'd get the attention you were hoping for.
I think if you look at it this way, rather than the 6,000 that would be allocated for just that one field, that would be a yearly payment. You would have, whatever it was, $3,350. You'd have the initial cost of the mower, but then it's going to last you 15 years. So you're really saving on a yearly basis moving forward.
I mean, I think I would look for the detail of, you know, how much, so maintenance and fuel and all that would be a line, how much the labor is, and you know, the requirements for an employee. So we go into it with our eyes wide open. Okay? Good, thanks.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Next is police.
We can bring 2 chairs up there.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's throwing lightning under the bus.
I'm giving Caleb has done most of the work.
So we had a good narrative on this. And that might, maybe, you know, we just go down through it just briefly would be a good way to keep us on track, I guess. And maybe the first item that stands out is the salaries. You're proposing to make some adjustments to,
Yep.
I think, better match local market, the local market.
Yeah, basically what I did was I pulled the union contracts from all the surrounding police departments that are hiring at the moment and compared them to what we pay and tried to find something that would fall somewhere close to not competitive, but at least something that would give somebody a reason to stay. We're the last department in Chittenden County that's not a union department. And
So all the remainders are.
yep. And, you know, as I was going through those contracts, it's absolutely ridiculous the stuff that, you know, the lists upon lists of things that are in those contracts that the officers are getting. And when I try to compete with that to keep officers here, it's difficult.
And,
I don't hear it's too easy for any of the others either, though.
and so this
But
was.
they're poaching them from places like us is the problem.
So this is this list. You had sort of I'll say a laundry list of
Those
some
are-
of the extras.
Those
that
are the
you saw.
some of the extras
some
that I
of the
pulled from other contracts of the surrounding departments. And, you know, I talked to the guys about what they were looking for and what they would like to see in the future, and none of these things on this list are what they're looking for. They want a pay scale basically set out so they know if they stay for 5 years, they're going to make X. If they stay for 10 years, they're going to make that, you know. And that's what they're looking for.
And today they don't necessarily have that because
They don't have that at all.
Yeah.
We've always gone off of, I guess, what, you know, the select board decides that year, you know, so you don't know what you're getting from year to year. So basically what I came up with for the proposal is a 3% a year, which is what we've been doing in the past. And then a 2% on top of that individually when you meet 5 years, 10 years, 15 years with the department. And that's not across the board. That's when that individual officer meets 5 years that July, then that officer gets that bump. So, and this year is the painful one, and then it levels out. So
this year is like 7.1.
yeah, this year is the
7.2%.
big increase, and then the year after that it's down to 3, and then the year after that it's down to 3.1. So
But this is in addition to the cost of living you give. This is
well,
the salary scale we're looking at.
that would be in lieu of any cost of living.
Right. So
No,
right.
no.
So it's 7%. And assuming this year was say 3, it would be 4% more, a bump of 4% compared to
Just to get everybody laid
Right.
out on the pay
Right.
scale where they should
Yeah.
be based off of.
Retroactive for 5 years, people who have been here for 5
No,
years?
no. So the pay scale is laid out based off of where you should start, where we have been starting people, and then based on that pay scale moving forward. So if you take an officer that's, you know, been here for 3 years, you drop him into the 3-year pay scale. If you have an officer that's been here for 4 years, you drop him into a 4-year pay scale. So
So we're not just starting from this year moving forward. We're
No,
doing it
but-
retroactive to,
But some officers move more than others because an officer that was hired last year was hired at the appropriate pay scale, and an officer that was hired 4 or 5 years ago was a little less. So,
less because
back then.
We
it
didn't
was
pay that
less.
much
then
back
we just
then.
paid less.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And then this goes forward. So this year, the proposal is the 4%, it's 7.2% 6.1%, whatever it is, if we assume there was a 3% sort of town-wide, could be 3, could be any, it could be 0. So last year was 3, so if we assume this year is 3, it's really a 4% or so bump. And then you're proposing for how many more years after that? At 3%, 2 more years?
I did
Every
the.
year.
It's every year after that, but I did the math for 2 more years just to see that, to make sure we leveled out.
And then this length of service piece in there.
Yeah, that is just
2% every 5 years, 2%
Yeah.
10 years,
10 years, 10,
2%.
that is to try to stay in line with the departments. A lot of the departments around here, when an officer reaches about 7 or 8 years, they get a pretty substantial pay bump. And, that extra 2% is just something to say, yes, you're still here. There's a reason to stay here. Oh, you reached 5 years, here you go. You're going to get another one when you spend, stay 10 years. So.
And you're, I don't mean to be speaking, but you're 72,000, which I don't dispute, and roughly cost to bring somebody new in.
Yep, I can explain that.
Yeah.
That is the base pay for that first year of training that we have. That's the includes the number for benefits that Renee and I meticulously worked out, and the equipment that we have to buy, a new officer, a vest, different small pieces of equipment that have to be purchased. That's a couple $1,000s on top of that. So when you hire an officer, a new officer, they have to go to the academy for 16 weeks. They've got a chunk of trainings that they have to drive back and forth through after that, and then they're in field training for, it's three months or so, and depending on the officer. And then there'll be a chunk of time after that they are in their own car. They get to go out and stop cars, but they still are not. You can't leave them by themselves. So it's a year before you can actually have that officer out by himself covering a shift. And every time we replace somebody, we're paying for it. So
Paying for a year and not really getting a
Yep.
year's worth of.
Yeah. And you're wearing down everybody else who's covering that position that's empty while we're trying to hire somebody, covering the shifts when that person's in training for 16 weeks, not even here. So.
Well, I mean, and there's, besides just that cost, I mean, if you are able to maintain an officer who's doing a really good job, assuming, and they start to know the people, that, there's a lot.
You have more
Yeah.
success with community
Right.
policing when the officer actually
Right.
knows the community.
Yeah.
So.
Are there any other comments?
Just try to grasp the budget thing again. So you want the regular 3% that everybody's getting, and then 4% on.
So the total, what did we come up with? It was 7 in just the salary line item increase. 6-point-something%. The total percent in that group, that's for the whole department, is a 6.1 or 6.8%. There's a jump. I had it this afternoon.
But then my question is, next year, would it be?
So next year you'd go down to that 3% because that bump puts you on this pay scale.
So the bump this year would
The
put
bump
you on
this
the
year
pay scale
puts
you're looking
everybody on the pay scale in the correct year that they're supposed to be.
for. Okay.
So then the next year comes along, you're already in the correct year you're supposed to be. You just bump up 1 year in the pay scale. It's a known quantity. So, an officer that's thinking about leaving because he doesn't feel like he's making enough money can look at another department and be, well, next year I'm going to make this. So there's no point in going and working somewhere where it might not be as nice.
So really what you're saying is we're low now, but the increases annually have kind of been following along. The 3%.
We've
what
only
I've
been using the 3%.
Yeah.
What we're
Last-
trying to, and because people were hired at a, anybody who's hired more recently is actually being hired at a higher rate because we've been increasing the base pay.
Right.
Yeah.
But now what we're saying is that we're kind of saying we will guarantee everybody a 3% increase. And then if they're here for 5 years, 2%.
Yeah.
So in some years, some officers will get a 5% increase.
Yeah, that's spread out.
Yeah.
But when
Right,
they hit their
right.
5 year, they
But
get
we're
that
basically
increase.
committing ourselves to, instead of a COLA,
Yeah.
to 3%.
And that's what I found in doing research is that's the common number that I keep coming up with. Different contracts have it in different forms. Some of them say you'll get a 1.5% shift bump, and then you'll get 1.5% COLA. It's all worded different, but everybody I found is a pretty common 3%. So
I'm trying to understand it a little more. So, let's say we do what you're asking for this year. And then what that would include in that is that, hey, when people hit their milestone, 5, 10, 15-year milestone, they automatically get this 2%. Okay, so that's in there. And now, but for next year, you're saying it's 3%. Are you, and rather than the COLA. So what you're doing is you're calling what the select board does once a year, the COLA. Right? I mean, like last year there was a 3% increase. Are you
Yeah.
calling that the COLA? The cost of living
Yes.
increase. Okay. So next year, well, and we're saying 3% this year, but the select board hasn't voted it, but
Yeah.
let's assume it's 3%. So next year, the select board will go through the same thing. We'll be looking at the town clerk and everybody else, and we'll be saying, well, I don't know, 2.5% maybe, or 3.5%. So are you saying no matter what the select board does, it will be 3%?
Because we're asking for a salary range, a chart.
Right,
That says,
right.
and it's exactly what Caleb just said. If an officer's thinking about, maybe going to Williston or something like that, they will know exactly what it's gonna be. So they know that they're gonna get a 3% raise, or if they're at 4 years, they know they're gonna get a 5% raise.
Right.
And all we're
Well,
trying to.
I get that, Joe. But as long as I've been here, on the
Essentially,
select board, it's been 3%, I think.
Well, not always.
No.
I think it's just that it's worked out to that. But
Yeah.
basically, it has been a number determined by COLA, like,
It wasn't last year.
oh, okay.
We've been
I
pretty
mean,
steady,
COLA's been,
3%. So
it's
it's-
been pretty
Yeah.
steady. So last year, the cost of living, I mean, it depends where you get it from, was
Yeah.
pretty low. I mean,
Yeah.
inflation's been very low.
Yeah.
So it really, even though we can call it that, in a way, generally we're saying, hey, everybody should get an increase because the cost of living's gone up. But we haven't really put it against any particular, there's a couple of
Right.
numbers that are published. Certainly last year didn't hit that.
Yeah.
So, but I would think the select board every year would be looking to provide a raise for the cost of living.
Right.
So what you're saying is we're gonna have a scale,
Yeah.
and this year we're gonna approve that scale, and it goes on. So how long does the 3% go? It does indefinitely.
Yeah, well, what happens if?
Right, the economy crashes or.
Yeah, it really takes us out of, it's saying we're making a commitment and going to taxpayers and,
It really doesn't take you out of the mix. We're asking this board right now to commit to something and to say that this is what we're gonna do. 3 years from now, if it's the select board, the 5 people sitting here that decide it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. All we're trying to do is we're trying to tell our people that this is what we're asking for, that these 5 people have decided that, yes, it's feasible, and we still have to go year by year. It's just that this is what we're asking for right now.
right, but it really is, we're trying to make a budget that we're going to ask all the voters to
Right.
approve. And by committing, and to be fair to all the other town employees. Because I think what we try to do is to recognize that there's some, how we're figuring out salaries and wages for everyone. And
But do you know that we've been saying this, the very first select board meeting I came to?
Yeah.
When I was still working at Williston? This was the exact same topic in the exact same thing. At what point then, if, you know, we're trying not, I'm not even saying we'd ever be union. That's just not even necessary. But the thing is, at what point then do we say, okay, we're gonna do this for Cheryl and the people up in planning and that, rather than holding us that we can't do it because we don't do it, then when do we do it?
right, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just trying to lay out what this leads us to, and that perhaps we are at the place where we do want to have kind of pay scales for recruiting anybody, you know, and we're trying to do that in the highway department and all of those.
But see,
But I
they're
think it's,
union.
what we want to do is to be able to explain it to the voters that we're making this commitment, because we are in a very tight market for, and I'm not convinced that this is going to do it, because I've been hearing that, you know, police departments, highway crews, we don't have enough people, you know, to do this. So I'm not buying that this is going to solve a problem. We're always going to be a smaller department within the Chittenden County
But we're
thing. And
also
some
one of the
people will
few.
choose to work here,
But
and
we're
other
at full
people are.
staffing right now. See, we're not Williston and South Burlington and UVM. We are at full staffing right now, and part of the goal that we're trying to do. But to me, you can't mention highway and wastewater because they have unions. It's whatever you negotiate with them is what there's gonna be, regardless of what it is. We're trying to get a system that sets it up for us. And Caleb has done serious research as far as what the other departments are doing. We're at full staffing, and we're trying to keep it that way. And there's no guarantees. I mean, obviously, you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. This is just one thing that we can try to do to keep what we've got now.
There is in the employee policy, there are incentives or bonuses for longevity. What I should
Right.
know those, but
I think after 5 years, it's $250. So five to
That's right, it's
9
an-
years
it's
is
an amount of
250,
money.
and then from 10 to 14 is another bump, and
right, so it's
And then it
just a
caps
set
out.
amount, yeah.
yeah.
And so,
Once
does
a
the
year.
police get that today? Okay,
As do the other departments
Yes,
that I
right.
researched that have pay scales.
they have those
They're
too.
also getting
Yeah,
longevity pays and stuff like that.
like incentives to that you stay.
Townwide policy in those other
Probably,
towns, not
yes.
just
No, that is
individual.
probably a town employee
Right.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you be expecting those two in this, or would the percentage take that? Because you'd still be under the employee policy.
I didn't even go that far to
Consider
look at
that.
that.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, you're
it's- yeah.
it's a what longevity pay is pretty small when you spread it out through an entire year.
Yes,
You know,
of course.
that's $600 or something like that. So it's not really
I won't disagree.
something I'm really fighting for.
Yeah.
But
So really what you're looking for is equalization, in your opinion, to other departments. And
It-
then in the future, looking for like a 3-year block of a commitment for increases. Is that the gist I'm getting?
it's not quite equalization, because if I did equalization, it wouldn't
Right.
like I couldn't bring that
Well,
budget
no.
here. But getting close to other departments and whatever kind of commitment we can get, you know.
I think it would be, for me, it would be helpful. I mean, I trust your data, but if you actually have some data that sort of says, hey, somebody in Shelburne, 5 years, this is what they're at. That would be good to, oh, geez.
Ask him and he will show.
So that would be good to just to take a look. I appreciate the work.
So,
but-
for example, a Richmond police officer, if one of my guys wants to go there, let's see. I think Jeremy, if he wanted to leave, would get. Where's my little sheet? Come on.
Need me to tell a joke or something?
Sure. Tell a joke while I find the little piece of paper that has everybody's pay on it. Ah, here we go. Nah, I got it right there. Let's see. That's all wheel. So, Uyghur. Soft Costco guys. Frank Bryan. So Frank, if he wanted to go there,
Not me.
not our other Frank. So they can go and 2073. So Frank's a little high because we just started him. But he would take about a 20-cent an hour pay cut, get all of his health insurance paid for, and a take-home car.
So be able to take the trooper's car home.
Oh, no, that's the town of Williston. Or excuse me, the town of Richmond.
Okay.
The town, Little Richmond PD.
Yeah,
Their new union contract, you know. This is what I did. I went through them all and found,
Did you make a spreadsheet of them?
All
Like
or
a summary?
summary?
no.
You've got this.
I'm sure somebody can, but
You gave me this that compares to the UVM.
that's the UVM. That's, that UVM gave that to us, but.
Is that helpful for now, or?
UVM is one of the higher paid departments.
The problem, I started a spreadsheet, and the problem I ran into was there's so many different fringe benefits and
Yeah,
shift
yeah.
differential that when you get into it, you can't. It ends up not being apples to apples,
Yeah.
because I can say, you know, yeah, so he gets a 20-cent an hour pay cut to go over there, but they're paying his full medical. Well, you know how much medical insurance is, so then he's then getting a raise. So that's where I ran into with a spreadsheet. There was just so many different things. So.
Any more discussion? Marilee, you worked with the police department? Any discussion on this, or?
Well, I think they've done a great job presenting the budget. They gave me tons of documents, got them right here, and very, very thorough. They've really done a lot of research and a lot of thinking to put this together, and it totally makes sense to me, this pay raise that they're talking about. One thing I did notice that I mentioned to Frank and Caleb on the Olafson's report, he's got all these great charts, and there is not a whole lot of crime in Hinesburg, but there is a lot of patrol time. There's a lot of
activity.
Yeah, a lot of time where the police are out and about in the community, and that's why we don't have a lot of crime. I think we've got a great police department.
We have the largest high school in Vermont, and they have a presence there as well, and so
Yeah.
they're working with the youth in the community and making connections, which is an important investment,
Yeah.
so.
See, we're never gonna even try to make what Winooski makes. Winooski
Right.
is fielding officers from everywhere. They're not really well liked right now. But the thing is we're not trying to make more than what the other departments are. We're trying to strike a balance into what we think is a good department. We've got high morale, people like working there, and yeah, you're not gonna make as much money. But we do rotational sign-up for shifts.
So you have
We
some
don't-
flexibility
we
that
don't
you're
stick
able to
some
provide.
person on a shift they don't want for
Yeah.
10 years because there's nobody underneath them.
Yeah.
And I think that we can offer things that other departments can't, but we still need to be
Competitive.
because there's that point when, somebody just has to look at the money, and even if they don't want to. But I think that, Caleb's done a great job on this salary chart, and I think that this is what we're gonna ask for.
I mean, so it just really getting a handle on it. So I haven't had much time to really process it. I think for me, the first thing that's hard to jump on is this sort of, guarantee going into the future. Even though you say it's no guarantee, but we would be saying, hey, this is what we're signing up for this year. So that's I think a hard one to process. I think the idea to give a bump to bring people to where they, to bring them, I won't say equity, but to bring them more in line, so it feels more equitable. That seems, like a reasonable step. And maybe it sort of could be a 2-year step that says, hey, 1 year, this is what we're doing. The next year, this is what we're doing, which kind of gives it some longevity. And then the idea, the longer you're here, that's really, I think that's a reasonable thing to sort of say, to build a career. And percentages add up. So even though it's only 3% or 4%, if you, or 2%, in 10 years, that does add up. So that helps to bring those salaries up. So that's just my thoughts, I think, on it. I don't know, Marilee?
Going into the future, Phil, most places have this kind of a salary structure.
Most unions
But
do.
they have a contract for that
Yeah.
amount of years, and we don't have contracts.
Right, unions do.
Right, so I don't understand what you're saying.
I
That
don't-
makes you nervous.
To say we will do 3% for the next 10 years.
Well, like Frank said, the select board could change. We can't.
Well, right.
We
So
can-
then, if that's true, then let's just see what happens next year. Why would we say we'll do this if there's a chance we won't? Why would we promise one thing and take it away? That's just not good policy. And
I
Frank's
see.
right. We could decide not to.
Right, well, maybe
We couldn't if it was a union.
Right, and I think that's why we want to think about it, and how are we going to make the case that this is really
Right.
overall benefit to the residents of Hinesburg? Because if we want to have community policing, it's worthwhile having the officers
Stay.
staying here. I don't know that there's a correlation between driving around and crime. I think it's the nature of what our community is and what we're expecting our police officers to do. And if we're happy with the service that they're providing, then that's what we're going to do. I think what we would really want to look at is, where would the salaries be? What would our budget be in 5 years if we followed this and run those numbers out and see where it is, and what percentage of an increase is it? Because it's going to compound if we're doing this. And so we can look back 5 years and see what our budget was, and if we continued the way that we have, what is that kind of philosophical commitment that we're making, and how do we make sure that voters are comfortable with that, and that we feel like that's the financially prudent thing to do? Because in the long run, I think it's very important for voters to understand what it costs for us to have a new police officer get trained. And I think that's a very compelling reason. But I feel like I need to, I will run those numbers myself of what it would look like in 5 years, based on this proposal. Because I think it's easy to think about it for 1 year, but that compounding amount is, all of a sudden, you know,
I did
it's,
it out to 3.
oh, you did do it?
oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Is
No.
that in the narrative here? I didn't get to chance to
yeah.
read this before the meeting, so, you know, I'll do that.
You know, that's year 18. Yeah, so the salary in 3 years, the salary is 415,982, as opposed to 391. 634.
Is that in our thing?
It is not. I can
Oh,
email
okay.
copies of those to Renee if you'd like. but-
Okay. Yeah.
But now, that's based on your salary range. What about a 3% raise that historically is given to all the employees anyway? So it may not be a $20,000 difference. It may only be a difference between the
It's a
2.5 or
delta,
the 3% you would
Yeah,
be giving. us
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
so.
yeah. I understand that.
Because after this year, that's what it goes back to. Is that 3%, except for an employee that hits
That hits
their 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
On a 5-year.
It's 2%.
It's 2.
Yeah.
Well, 2 plus
it's
3,
Plus there,
so it's 5.
Right, 3 plus 2.
2 additional, I should say.
Yes, exactly. No, we don't say you hit 5 years, you're only getting 2% this year.
So we've talked about doing just this. I mean, I talked about it with Renee, how we value our employees, and, you know, certainly moving up, everybody up to make them feel like they're appreciated. They are appreciated. Phil's idea of possibly breaking it out a little bit more, maybe into 2 years to bring people up, might be something we have to think about. Because I know there's going to be a lot of pressures on this budget. I've seen some numbers. So there may be, I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no to your proposal, but there may be challenges. That's, you know, your proposal is not out of line with what we've spoken about before, so it's
The other
not,
thing
it's
is
not a
when
crazy
you
ask.
Hire somebody new and it's $70-some thousand. To me, the price is almost secondary to the fact that we've got an unknown quantity coming in. We're investing all of this in somebody that we're hoping that after an interview and that is the fit for the community. Every employee I've got right now is a serious fit to Hinesburg. And you just want to keep the team you've got, and, you know, so, like I said, the money is just secondary to trying to get somebody that fits our town.
And there certainly would be cost if the present officers decided they weren't being treated fair and decided to go to the union, they could do that. I mean, that's an option. So there would be costs associated with that, probably more cost. So, and then they would be spending money on union dues too, which, you know, doesn't benefit the employee. Yeah. So.
It hasn't. Well, not with me, it hasn't. Well, you wouldn't be in the union.
Do you want to just touch base on some of the other highlights of the budget there?
Sure.
You had a good write-up.
Equipment is proposed to go up $4,000, and everything else besides the salary line item is stuff we either have no control over whatsoever, or we really need to do for officer safety and liability reasons. Our tasers are exceptionally old and past their life, and they are to the point where the company will not back us with for liability reasons. Like if something happens, we have no backing from them anymore on their product. And as of 2018, they aren't even going to supply us with like the batteries and repairs and stuff like that we would need. Unfortunately, they do this to force you to buy new ones, but it's what it is. They have a
Tasers every officer has.
So every full-time officer has a taser, and we have one taser that the part-time officers sign out when they come in and work their shift.
How much do they get used?
Well, not very often.
Hopefully as little as possible.
If
Why we're
this,
Hinesburg.
if this budget goes through, it shouldn't be.
I see what you're saying there, but
Right.
the problem is the other option
Yeah, I know.
is even less
Right.
attractive.
But can we just carry around a taser? I mean, the people get shot carrying a water pistol, so maybe they just carry the old tasers. No, I'm sorry, we shouldn't joke about those things.
The company Axon is offering a program right now, and I really need to get an answer on this soon.
Soon as in before town meeting budget.
Soon as in before I leave tonight.
Oh, that is pretty soon.
Yes. So basically, I have the opportunity to get into
keep
this
you here longer then.
this program. I'm going to be here for a while. Where we buy. We buy. What is it? Seven. Six new tasers. They send us the tasers, the holsters, the cables for programming and all this stuff, the cartridges, the batteries, and they spread the price out over 5 years. It comes with a 5-year warranty on them, as opposed to if we were to buy them individually, we would have to pay an extra, I think it's $200 for a 4-year warranty for each one of them.
The incentive is to buy it all.
The incentive is to lock you in
Lock you
and
in,
make you
yeah.
buy it all at once. They will only do it if you do what they call full deployment, which is giving everyone a taser. I spent quite a while on the phone with the guy trying to explain to him that we have part-time officers that work 1 day a week, and I don't need every one of them to have a taser. And they finally agreed that if every one of our full-time officers had one, that we could have one for the part-time guys. The difference is just over $2,000 if we were to buy them individually, as opposed to doing this program, and we don't have to pay for the 5-year warranty, whereas we have to pay for the 4-year warranty that they're going to give us. So that I would have to do that before the end of December, and we would have to pay $984 this year, which I would take out of our current equipment budget, and then we raised the equipment budget next year to pay the $1,584 every year for the next 4 years after this year. Chief and I have batted this one back and forth quite a bit. I don't like it, but this is the best way of doing it. And there's not like another company we can go to and get around it. The standard is to have your officers have tasers now, and they have a corner on the market. So
we would be replacing them every 5 years.
I would guess that in 5
So
years they're going to pull this again.
Yeah, we're not going to phase in the buying. We're going to get
No.
all new ones.
It's a lot more expensive to phase in the buying.
Except that we've got, one of the tasers now is 2008, and they're still.
One of them's
supporting them.
2005.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Right.
Well, they're still supporting them. There's
Yeah.
no guarantee that they're gonna stop all of
They're-
a sudden in 5 years and say, okay, you have to have new
Yeah.
ones. There's a chance that we may not have to replace them until,
I would guess they'll do the same thing. They'll say, it's getting kind of you're getting liability, and then the next year they're going to say,
And what happens to the old ones?
So one of the requirements for the old ones is we have to take them out of service. We're not allowed to keep using them.
And where do they go when you take them out of
They
service?
they don't care what we do with them. As we can use them for training, we can use them for whatever we want. We can't sell them, and we can't have them in use
And why can't you sell them?
because you sign a document saying that you're not going to.
it's kind of like old SCBA's.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things you gotta be careful about.
Well,
Yeah.
police departments sell their guns.
It is a little different in that.
For the $150 or $100 we'd get for it, I wouldn't want it floating
Well, see,
around.
Yeah,
Well, I
out
mean,
there.
I don't either.
You know.
And that's why I'm concerned. I would feel
Okay.
like I would like us to have a policy that they aren't being circulated.
Oh no.
No.
They're not. They're probably going to end up in a box in the armory, and then they're probably going to get destroyed or sent back into Taser if they
Trust me,
offer
they're
some
not
kind
gonna
of.
go out. Well, that's the whole purpose of what we're getting stuck with, is they're not gonna even sell the cartridges of batteries
Yeah.
next year.
Is
So,
that for every model we had? You have some that are 2008.
They're all this. They're all the same.
the same model number,
Oh, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Oh, actually.
just some are newer than
Yeah.
others.
So I would propose that between you and Renee, this is sort of a budget item of under equipment. And, you know, that you can decide that this is what we're gonna do, and when your equipment budget comes up next year, you're gonna need at least $1,584 in there, cause you'll be on the
Yeah.
hook for that.
Well, I didn't want to commit to something this big without bringing it up. You know.
Because this is each.
So the one,
No,
two,
it's
three,
for
four,
all of them.
five. That's a payment.
Yeah.
For all.
Yeah.
For all you get, they package everything up as soon as you sign up for this and send you everything, and then you pay those payments over the next. Yeah. As opposed to the 9,427 that you would pay if you just bought them.
So, explain to me what the cartridges are for these things, because there's some that were bought in 2011. You said you're not gonna be able to get new cartridges.
Batteries,
Or the
cartridges. We can actually keep our cartridges. You can still use. Batteries. They have a battery in it, and then they have a removable cartridge that shoots 2 prongs with wires in them.
Mm-hmm.
The cartridges, you use so many for training, and have to buy more. And the batteries just last, however long they last. Ours last pretty long, but they go dead eventually. You got to buy new batteries. They're not making the batteries anymore. They're not supplying you with any more batteries. The cartridges, we will be able to keep the cartridges that we currently have and use them in the new ones. And they will probably be the cartridges we use. We'll keep the new cartridges they send us, and the cartridges that we currently have we'll use up for training the guys on the new tasers.
So when was the last year they sold this particular model?
A couple of years ago, I think.
That's
It's
kind of
been-
rotten.
It's very. I told you, it is a.
Argument here.
It's.
So is the oldest taser we have is like 05 or something like that? you
Yeah.
said. Is that when tasers, we started, when we bought our first taser? And so this is the first time we're kind of going through this, or they're changing the game on us, or?
So.
history
No,
there?
everybody's been using this model for. Since then. Probably since a little bit before then.
But this is the first time we've had to go through and replace tasers?
No, we have replaced several tasers already.
But one at a
But
time.
it's not that big. They used to be $600 or $700 a piece.
it's
So
much-
if one broke, you'd send it in, they'd call you up or email you and say, we're not fixing this, it's too old and falling apart, and then you'd have to go to the budget.
Yeah.
But $600 out of the equipment budget, if you only have to do it once every so often, is not that big of a deal. You
So
know?
this is the first time that
This is
this
the-
kind of a
yes.
scenario has come
Yep.
up. Yeah.
Anything else on that? Okay. The next one, which is also police equipment, our vests, the body armor, has a life of 5 years. After that, we run into the same thing. The manufacturer will no longer guarantee it. It's getting old. If they don't, we're in a liability situation. What I'm trying to do is, we currently have some vests that are already expired. We have some that have a year or two left on them, and we have some that are new. The idea is to put $2,000 in the equipment line item to replace 2 vests a year and spread that out. And if we come to a point where nobody needs replacing that year, we won't replace one. We're not going to replace a vest just because we have that money, but that way we can get everybody up to having an actual up-to-date vest. So, any
Hard to believe they wear out. I mean, imagine they wear. But
they break down if you
They do.
you know
Body sweat.
yeah you wear
yeah,
these 40 hours a week
Yeah.
all year. they get the actual panels in them start to break down a little bit. And I don't think it's I mean, you see wear, but I think it's more of a structural
Yeah,
thing as far as safety.
okay.
So, any other?
I assume an officer doesn't go on duty without it. It's standard. It's part of like,
It's required.
it's required. It's even more, okay.
Yeah. So, any other questions on that?
And would that be our policy? Or is it like a state policy? or-
That is currently
Yeah,
our.
it's our policy, okay.
I don't know if it's a written policy, but it is currently our department policy. That
We just do it.
You do
The
it.
only time I don't have a vest on is if I'm going to Montpelier, and
If
hopefully nobody's
Yeah.
gonna do anything to me up there.
if you're in uniform, you
dress
should have a vest on
Yes.
because you're identified as a police officer. So, anything else on that one? Okay, police uniforms. I brought that up by $800. In past years, we have purchased duty boots for the officers if we had money at the end of the year, and several years we haven't had money at the end of the year. And this is one of those things that we need to provide equipment. We shouldn't be expecting our officers to go out and buy their own equipment. So that amount reflects buying each officer one pair of boots per year. The next one is the CAD, which is our computer expense, our connection to Waterbury for all our police computers and
That's our
that
licenses. for
yeah
our-
data and everything. That went up $500 a year. We have no control over that. And I think that's koozie went down $101.
Yeah.
So those are the only increases that we have at this time.
No bids on the
I don't.
December 18th is when we open that.
Have you received anything yet?
Received anything yet.
Okay.
Is it advertised?
It's out there with a sign on it, and then I emailed the bid poster to the company, like the surrounding companies that like Chicago Motors and all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
that
The ones that bought our own
That-
iPhone.
Yeah.
that buy those. So
But civilians can buy it.
yeah, it's just we pulled everything out of it that's police related at this point. So
When I met with you, you talked, or I think Frank talked about a grant or a couple grants that you had gotten that paid for some of these things, and you gave the town back money.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice for the whole select board to hear that.
which one was it? The radio
NBC
grant?
was the
Well, the
big-
NBC, the computer, the in-car computer grant was 19 grand, I think,
Yeah,
that we gave back.
we paid for some paving, I think.
And several of the other things we have right now, like our body cameras and all of our radars in the cars, all of that was purchased through Governor's Highway Safety, which is one of the grants and the programs that we participate in. So,
Yeah, I gave Renee a list, and that was in our 2015 annual report. Our radios were 43,000 for car radios and our portable radios. And that was because they've changed the FCC's changed the rules so that was kind of fortunate. But we've done a number on grants. The vests, I'm gonna look into that because Leahy's office does police vests. So I'm gonna look into seeing what I can do about that, but
So I have a couple questions. One, just professional service, is that just cleaning? Or is it cleaning and
our
other things?
fire alarm inspection, our sprinkler
Oh,
system
okay.
inspection, anything that has to do with the building.
Yeah,
So it does include cleaning as well?
Yeah, I believe so. The building one, yes. That's why I was gonna wonder if Tom wants to clean buildings, because then we can get him to mow the grass and,
and the cleaner that you use, is that used elsewhere by the town?
it was here.
Oh, the same one,
Yeah,
so
he
now
retired.
you're also looking for another one? What other buildings were done? Are now open.
Sorry, this was just the town hall and the police that we had for that service provider.
Okay.
So we're looking for a new service provider for cleaning?
Yes.
One that has insurance. Because
And
we
one
have-
that cleans?
And one that has insurance.
I have a quick question here. Yep. Police vehicle repair and maintenance, $8,000, and the actual was $566. I'm just wondering
So,
if that's a whole.
no, I don't know if you have the,
I'm at the.
so what's your line item after police vehicle repair and maintenance?
Tahoe.
Okay, so you do have that one. So if you go down, you get to Tahoe, it's 545. Yeah,
5,545.
yeah, the numbers, you have that version of it? Okay, so you have to add all of those up down through there, not just that 566. The budget breaks it down per vehicle.
Plus the 494 plus the,
Yes.
So I assume the Tahoe is from damage. Isn't that covered by insurance?
Some of that was, yes.
We're not too sure
Yeah.
how much, if some of it accidentally got pulled. Well, 1,000 is us.
Yeah.
1,000 is deductible.
Right.
And then,
But
yeah.
So you're talking. I mean, we rotate these cars, what, every 3 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Oh, every 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have to put tires on, probably.
Then it's
That's
tires, oil
actually
changes.
Our biggest expense is tires and things.
Okay.
Especially now with the bigger tires.
And I had a question about utilities. Is that must be electric,
Gas.
gas? Is there anything else in there?
Crystal Rock is no longer in there.
No, I wasn't thinking of that, but that's
We
good.
buy our own water.
And internet too in there, phone?
No, phone is separate.
So
Yeah, phone
internet's
has it.
not, so that's just
That's all the
heat
utilities
and electricity,
except for telephone.
those two items, heat and electricity.
I think whatever bills we have.
Well, it's Casella, it's our.
Trash
garbage
removal.
collection. Yeah,
Yeah.
Vermont Gas, Green Mountain Power.
Trash.
Casella.
So,
So what other town facilities use Casella? The town hall?
Casella is, we have for,
Is it a contract for the whole town?
yeah, I think, but it's not a contract for the whole town, but we have Casella that's
There's another
doing the whole,
opportunity,
right,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's something we
Right.
definitely have talked
Yeah,
about.
they give us the fire department. No, actually, the
They-
fire department gets it for free, I think.
Yeah,
But then they were
and
charging me 40 something, so.
they're not. So
Not anymore.
the last bill we just got was considerably cheaper than when I called around looking for a garbage service, since I'm gonna have to drive my trash somewhere now. But
Yeah.
it was like $30-something, and I didn't find it that, I called
I
every
think they
trash
give us a
company
break.
in this area. So,
but it's the highway garage, it's here. They do the rec, they provide the trash for the
Right.
rec fields.
Right.
Don't they do they do the porta potties for the rec fields? Or is
Somebody
that
else, I think,
somebody
does
else?
that.
Okay.
PNP.
So we could
Wastewater.
bid the whole thing out
Yeah.
for trash for everybody.
That would be worthwhile, I think. All right, are there more questions? Okay.
And so on the vehicles, those are leased, right? And do you know if those have that lemon clause in it? Or, like if the vehicle's not performing the way you want, can you go back on it or not?
That was the original, when we first started leasing it. I've got no reason, unless the new contracts, because I think that they've changed companies, or they've changed,
We went for a different one, and we put it out to bid, so.
yeah.
Well, apparently it wasn't true anymore on the trucks, the highway
right,
trucks.
but the thing is, I mean, before we would ever go that way, we'd be back over to Ford or to, under that, to you know, to try to work that out
Yeah,
that
they
way.
don't do it on commercial
Yeah.
vehicles is where the.
Well, we did. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Well, which one are you talking about?
I just wondered whether there's any advantage to the leasing versus the loan, you know, why we're doing that, that's all.
Something to
And,
look at.
and if we, you know, if we change a little bit of our capital budgeting and we're purchasing them outright.
So I had one more question. A few years back, there was some discussion about the level of first aid training that an officer has, and there was some discussion about, you know, requiring a certain level. I don't know it on the top of my head, and that we kind of stopped doing that. Or so, what level are we shooting for each
We're
officer
shooting
as a
for-
minimum?
As a minimum, EMR, emergency responder training. And the thing is right now, I'm an advanced, Caleb
Right.
is an EMT, Jeremy and Anthony are EMRs, which is a good level. Frank, we just couldn't, we were gonna send him, but, we're a little bit shorthanded, so we didn't send him. But no, EMR is the minimum level. Two out of three of the part-timers are EMTs.
So is that true at other places?
No.
Okay. And how do you decide whether you respond to a medical emergency versus, I mean, do you always, if you're
No,
not?
we respond to a police emergency first as police. If we're not doing anything else, we respond to a medical
But it's
emergency.
gotta be a police emergency, not just, I'm going to a lockout or something.
Yeah.
If
Right, right.
Anything.
Yeah.
And we pretty much go to all of them. It's only
Yeah.
been just one or two that we missed. But that's probably one of the proudest things I think of this department, is our medical.
And I think that is a big selling point that, you know, when you talk about community police, you sort of say, you know, these are the things
Absolutely.
that we provide. And, you know, sometimes you look at the list of activities in Doug's report, and yeah, most of it's not, you know, showing up at a crime in action, but it's community service for people who, you know, elderly or whatever they may need. And I think the medical piece is a big piece.
That's, I can never see that really going away.
Good.
So when, just for the public, when you dial 911 for an emergency, if it's a medical emergency, you guys are most likely to be the first ones to respond?
Yeah. Yeah, Caleb and I this morning on a lift assist, that was called out. We were
Yeah.
first on scene. And it's just because we have our car. I mean, it's just, we
Yes.
don't have to go to the
Yeah.
station and,
Right.
but the equipment that we have in our cars, you know, AEDs and a full medical bag and oxygen, and we've got everything to take care of, if we end up being the only one. But no, I'm seriously proud of what we do with that.
All right. Good, thanks. Yeah. It's always an education.
We'll talk later.
How's your foot, Frank?
Pardon me?
How's your foot?
Doing well?
All right, next, fire. Did you want to say anything about this one, Marilee?
I'm not very exciting.
Yeah, he was all right about that. I think if you look at the fire department and you compare FY19 budget to the FY18 budget, you'll notice a lot of very similar numbers.
Yeah. I think really the only change that really is gonna show up or might reflect differently is because we moved the replacement AEDs from capital because they aren't meeting the 5,000 over into a line item in our regular budget.
I haven't actually done that.
Got
here.
that
I
yet.
note on my spreadsheet to add that line, but,
Yeah.
so that will be
So
a
that'll
line
really
we
be
add.
the only change. It'll go down in capital and up in, so.
Which is this now?
The AED replacement, it's actually under capital right now,
Yeah,
hasn't
defibrillators.
made the transition yet, so, yeah,
Go
it'll go into
general
the,
fund.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I think like, you know, I guess I have two questions. One, last year there were if I remember, some increases just in medical supplies and things
Yeah.
because you know,
Yeah.
you consume it all. So this year, you know, your budget should,
Right.
it looks like we're in a good place for
Yeah,
that.
what we've been able to, because much of the items used during an EMS call, St. Mike's will basically not reimburse, but give us a replacement for it. So that should,
Because then they charge
correct.
for that.
Yeah,
I
so
see.
that should cut down on
Yep.
the amount of money we have to pay to replace what's being used. So,
And would you still describe this last year as a successful one of getting more volunteers?
oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So-
it's been
so-
tremendous.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
So that's not
Yep.
really impacting the budget at this point?
It hasn't. I mean, I think where we see the change, I mean, one thing which I did miss, and I mean, we're gonna try and do it with this budget, is the minimum wage increase, which I didn't catch. So, you know, everything, you know, we're gonna be closer on training on the professional development. We're gonna use more of that because we've got a lot more people we're training, so. You know, and I think on the calls, you know, we were down a little bit last year because of weather. I think that's where it shows up. You know, it's always a best guess, I guess. You know, looking back, you can try to project, but it doesn't. You know, we see an increase and it'll flatten out. Very, you know, once in a while it'll dip a little bit and go up. You know, and we're in this past year, we were in a dip on one of those plateaus. You know, it could go for 2 years like that, or it could go way up. I mean, it really is, you know, there's so many things that come into play in that.
And I imagine just one big call could have a big
Oh,
impact
absolutely.
on the
Yeah,
budget.
yeah. And I mean, we're fortunate that, you know, where other people right now, we've been to 3 structure fires this past week, all out of town, and, you know, it really, I'm proud because when we get there, we went to the Shelburne House fire, and I think there was 11 people there, you know, which is in the middle of the day, which is, and they typically don't have anybody in Shelburne. They happen to be doing some fire prevention, so they had people in town. So, you know, but that's pretty consistent with us. You know, daytime, you know, we're 6, 7, 8, 9 people every call, which is really unheard of around any of the volunteer departments. So, you know, we're very, very lucky in that respect. And, you know, we do have a big involvement with the high school now. So we do have probably one of the biggest cadet programs around, and we're actually going to have to restructure how we deal with the cadets because we have so many cadets. It really behooves us to put their training onto a separate night because I think we're at 7 or 8, and it's almost where the case of every month we're getting probably I don't want to say middle age, the 30-somethings, which are the ones you know want to be stable, and then we also have this component of young people coming up that are interested in. You know, obviously some will stay for the duration and some will go on to college, but I think 3 or 4 people in college now, and like they're home every vacation, and you know, some of them are home weekends, and you know, so I mean, it's a very good, very solid group of people that we have. And we did a EMR class in the spring. Frank taught in the spring we taught it, or summer. And we had 15 people in that. So, you know, so that was a big boost for the EMS part of it. And, you know, so we're in a great place. I mean, we've never been this good before. So I think this week we're at 55 people. So.
What do you attribute that to?
Me? No. I think it's community involvement and being out there, and where things happen in the department. You know, we aren't stagnant on how we do things. We're thinking about it all the time. And I mean, I do have people from Williston in the department. I have people from Shelburne in the department. You know, and it's just because the way we train, our requirements, the number of different things that we do, and the value we put, value we give to people that join us, It is hard on the budget sometimes. I mean, you take a firefighter one, we just bought gear again for this year's amount of money for our gear expense, which is $15,000. And, you're looking at $4,000 a person. So, obviously, unless they're 30-something and have experience, they don't get the gear. So when we do buy gear, it's being shuffled down, doing the hand-me-down thing, because we have people that are interior people and people that are exterior. And then we have some people that are just EMS, some that are both. So, I mean, it's a big cross-section of just about any way you can do it. And then we have all the police officers besides. So, daytime now, it's probably not uncommon to see, 5 people at a call probably, which is pretty unheard of too, so.
Shower and Williston are both full-time.
No, just Williston, just
Williston.
Williston. Yeah, Shelburne is actually going to try and put in their budget 2 full-time people this year.
So are Shelburne and Charlotte kind of both in the volunteer boat that we're in, where their numbers are up?
No, they're way down, yeah.
They're way down.
Yeah, they're way down, and Charlotte goes to almost every call in Shelburne, just because, South Burlington covers them from the north and Charlotte from the south. If it's on our side of town, we get called automatic, but, and on structure fires and stuff, they call us automatic, but their numbers are down. Huntington's down, Richmond's, everybody around us that's volunteer is down, so.
One of the nice things about Hinesburg is there's a serious commitment to time with training and all of that. We have what I think to be the perfect number of calls. We don't get 4 calls a night where you never get dinner, you never get a night's sleep. We can go 4 or 5 days without a call, and then we can get 3 calls. And what I like is the balance of the number of calls makes it worth all it takes to be on the department. And, Moncton, maybe 10 calls or 20 calls a year.
Right.
Yet they've got the training commitments. And like I
Same amount of
said,
training.
Yep, same amount of training.
like I said, Hinesburg to me is just like, the perfect number of calls to make it worth what we have to do.
Yeah, and eventually we will see more elderly housing, and it's going to change the complexion of what we do. But right, exactly. Wow, all of us. Right, we resemble that. So I mean, it's going to be changing. There's no doubt in my mind, and how do you, once we start seeing things happen, then obviously the budget will have to start to reflect it. But it's just growth.
That same question I asked earlier, in 5 years or
Right.
10 years.
Yeah.
Just briefly, where do you see us?
I think in the future, after, I don't want to say soul searching, but really looking at numbers and people, I believe we're going to be at an ambulance, because we can't, the only place where we can speed things up is is here, the way things operate currently. To make that 10-minute change is here. You can't do it with a mutual, I want to say mutual aid ambulance, but outside ambulance services, you need one here, because that's going to make that 10-minute difference. And that's all it is, which is a tremendous amount of time for somebody having a heart attack. That's huge. Or a stroke. A stroke is probably even worse than a heart attack, because it's so critical to get them there. And, down the road, I don't have a doubt in my mind, but the other part of it, which we've been working on and, and we've identified for quite a while, is you got to have more members, so that, that's working. And I know that the public knows that that's the way we're going. And a lot of the people that we're beginning to get now, the 30-somethings I call them, are settled in the community. They may have had EMS in the past. I mean, Kent Frazier's a good example of that. He expired, but now he's right back, done everything he needs to do. So he's right back at full bore, So we get people that are moving into town that already have, EMS credentials, because they know down the road that's where we're headed. You know, it's interesting to talk to a lot of, especially the people. I mean, we have one fella now that he's on Williston. He's a lieutenant on Williston Fire, runs on their ambulance, and he joined Hinesburg because, you know, he wants to first respond. He's obviously closer to Hinesburg because he was there by Lake Iroquois, and he's an eye, makes most of our daytime calls. So I mean, you know, we're getting the type of people that you really want to have without having to train them from day one through the whole process. And I think you know, the value of this town is that. I mean, you know, people see what we value here and how the town values its people and, you know, the community, how we interact. And, you know, it's a great thing to hear, talk to people coming in, because that's one thing I always ask them. You know, why'd you come here? You know, and I mean, I have a neighbor that just bought a house near me, and they came from hardcore New Jersey. Had to get out, looked around, did a bunch of searching. Guess where they landed? Hinesburg. You know, so it's a real compliment to all of us. I mean, the whole community, that we get that kind of a commitment. People will show that kind of interest. Absolutely. You know, like Jen was saying, valuing, you know, wanting to make the commitment to the community. You know, it's really the same for us with you know, she has it in recreation, we have it in this, so, you know, we're in a good place. So.
Good. Any more questions?
I do. Station repair.
Yep.
What do you see on the horizon?
It really, I've tried to get some contractors to come in and give us some price estimates on, you know, we've got like the outside siding, the bottom where our lawn care people have kind of messed up the siding a little bit. And, you know, the building's old. I mean, it's a 1972 building, and, you know, it's not anywhere near the condition the town highway garage is by any means, but we also don't want to let it get there. So, you know, we think, you know, we've got to try to be more aggressive on the bones of the building, I guess is the way to put it. You know, the cosmetics of the building's decent, you know, but the bones need some work. And, you know, I think it, you know, depending upon where we go, really is the direction of how much money, you know, we're going to spend. If it has some other use, it would be a different type expenditure. So, you know, I think that's a big thing to think about. And, you know, Dave and I have done a lot of soul searching about the building, trying to figure out how much we need to do. And, you know, that's probably one of the things about it with maintaining it as a garage actually is more costly, you know, because of the wet floors all the time, and, you know, it never gets dried out real good. And I mean, we have fans and stuff, and it does get dried out, but, you know, you're continuously using water on the floors. And, you know, when it was built, you know, it obviously was long before pressure treated per se. So I mean, you know, we've replaced the sills before in the building when we resided the inside the last time.
Was that what was the expense in the fiscal year 17? The $9,665.
Yeah, that's all those things. Everything goes into the building maintenance is a compressor. We have to do same thing like Frank does. We have the air compressor for our SCBA's.
That's under station repair?
Yeah. We have the annual testing for the fire alarms, the sprinkler system. And we have been putting money into doing more maintenance inside the building. You know, the furnace was the separate piece of it. So, you know, so
Because you have, I mean, there's a lot of there's the equipment and maintenance budget item too, so. I mean,
that's
it'd
fire
be-
equipment, yeah, up above.
So the station repair
Right,
it's not
is
just.
anything that goes into the building for maintenance and repair, so. Really, the fire alarm and stuff, that's a maintenance, annual maintenance. Right down towards, oh, no, we don't, yeah, professional services and
So it's
is
kind
also
of
in that, yep,
Combination.
yep, yep.
So, percentage-wise, how significant is fundraising activities with this budget, and where does that
Right.
show up in the budget?
Right, that doesn't show up in the budget,
Or
it's,
how does it affect it?
right, probably in the past, for many years, the association bought vehicles. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's where, up until well, I think Engine 3 is the last vehicle the association paid outright for, which was 80,000 at the time. You know, before that, the association had actually been fundraising and buying all the vehicles, so there came a time when the state said, okay, you can't do coin drops anymore, you know, for whatever liability reasons. They're back, we now do.
Yeah, they are back. Yeah,
We
yeah.
do, right, we get the call, you have to stop right now because you're backing up traffic too much. From Randy Snelling calls us from AOT, because he'll get complaints, but, so what we've done with that money is like, we've been buying 6 Class A uniforms for the members, which we've never had true uniform, you know, Class A dress uniforms before. So, you know, in that, the 501c3, it's specific support of the Hinesburg Fire Department. You know, that's it. That's the only thing it can be used for.
Yeah, but it bought the auto pulse, which is our
Right.
CPR
Yeah,
device.
that was,
It bought our 12 lead, which
Yeah.
we're right up with the transport
Yeah.
services as far as our
Right.
12 lead now.
Right.
It paid for that.
yep.
people do make donations.
Oh, absolutely.
From the cone drop and.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yep, absolutely. And,
So that it is a 501c3
right, yep,
and it's tax
yep,
deductible.
yep. Yeah, and,
And
you
you're
know.
up to date on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we also do is like, you know, Frank's right, you know, when we bought the 12 lead, we put it out there, we're doing fundraising for, you know, new piece of equipment. I think almost everything on that truck, big pieces, stair chair, auto pulse, which does automatic CPR, our 12 lead,
12 lead, is that a battery?
no, 12 leads is what gives you the cardiac monitor.
What the 12 lead does for this town is the fact that from 8 to 5, you've got the cat lab up in UVM. It's got all the doctors and nurses it needs. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they have to be called in. If we put a 12 lead on somebody here and it shows that they're having a heart attack, before the ambulance gets there, we're on the phone to UVM. They get a copy of the EKG.
Transmits
and
it to them.
That to me is an amazing,
Yeah.
one of the best things.
Right.
we've done.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And on Med 100, we have everything but a stretcher
Yeah.
that's in an ambulance, which is unheard of. I mean, you know, a lot of places, if you go into an ambulance, you've got to buy all that equipment. Well, we already have it, you know, through the generosity of the community, we have it. So,
It's come up before.
Yeah.
At the select board and
Oh, yeah.
discussions about the fact there's this, with the library too, they have some funds coming in here and they're getting
Right.
town money and it's always
Yeah.
sort of, where, you know,
right,
there's not this transparency
Right.
with it. I think it would be good just to even know what percentage, so here's your budget at
right,
whatever it is, the total.
Right.
And then how much in a particular year are
Right,
you
I think-
getting through the
right.
association?
I think last year at the coin drop, 5,700, I think, was
And
what
then-
we
And then
raised.
just donations.
Right.
Do-
$25 here, $50 here.
So you're
you know,
talking
so-
maybe 15,000, 20
Oh, no, I would,
total that you took
Current-
in last year,
took in last year, maybe 8,000.
total
Yeah,
for,
yeah, because.
besides town
But so
funds.
that, but
Correct.
you're saying that almost everything on the Med 100 was donated.
Yep, over the years, yep, yep. And a lot of it, like I say,
So-
we go out and say, you know, we go out and acknowledge,
Yeah,
we want to.
we're looking for this, that tends
Right.
to work well for fundraising.
Yep, yep.
See, the thing is we don't need an auto pulse. We can sit there
Right.
and do CPR for 30 minutes going in an ambulance. we don't really have to have the 12 lead. What's good about the association money is it's things that we can have that we don't necessarily need to come to you to ask. The 12 lead was $15,000.
Yeah.
So those are the high ticket items that
So that was
would
the
be a
nature of my
capital.
question,
or
though,
something.
is would that benefit, having that somehow show up in the budget, that these kinds of things are happening?
Right, yeah, and I think we've talked about that before. A lot of times that, you know, the fire department in one aspect has been our own worst enemy, because the community didn't realize what it was costing to operate. You know, so you didn't see the 12, you know, the cost of the 12 leads.
Exactly.
Well, oh yeah, you see the trucks and, you know, the peripheral equipment, you know, and it's really a added bonus benefit with the things that we buy. And it shows up because we always put them into the Gatsby, whatever it is.
What it costs to replace
Right.
everything. So we
Well,
don't really know
yeah.
the operating expenses
Right.
for the entire department.
And then that's really
And-
gonna
which is
change once
good,
we
but
get
we-
an
Right.
ambulance
Oh, yeah.
here, and all of a sudden,
Yep.
this is just gonna balloon.
Right,
And,
yeah.
and it's gonna make sense
Right.
to you, because inside, you've seen this for
Right,
so many
we've
years.
seen it. We've seen it work. Yeah, I mean,
But-
you know, Terry Wilson has been, you know, very outgoing with the fact that when you want an ambulance, they will buy us an ambulance. You know, there again, that's a community donation that, you know, how do you really capture that? And
Well, we know
You
the
know.
value of it.
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
but we do know what it costs. And
Yes,
then it does
absolutely.
become an operating expense
Eventually,
for us,
right.
and we
Yeah.
have that. So
Yep.
I think what we're asking is
Right.
that we really would like to understand what the full
Right.
operating cost of the department is,
Yeah.
which includes the revenue that you're spending on, you know, legitimate things that we
Right.
all come to count on, but
Right.
we really don't know
Right, what it costs.
the true cost
right,
is.
yep,
But I think
Yeah.
it takes what can be perceived as a negative, right? I mean, you
Right.
could look at it and say, well, I don't know, you know, they got extra money, they got extra money somewhere, and what are they doing with it? When you really could,
Yeah.
it could be presented as,
Right.
here's what we were asking the town,
Right.
and we do fundraising,
right,
you know, through the association
Yep.
that provided in the last 3 years this
right.
amount
And it-
of.
right, yeah, and
and
we
then-
always,
and-
it always goes into like the record and stuff, because we want the community to
Yeah,
know it.
I
We don't
mean,
have it written down in a spreadsheet that this year it was this piece, this piece, this piece. Right, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Item that says, here's how much was brought
Spent,
in.
spent,
And when
right.
you have something to
Right.
highlight, like a piece of equipment, it
Right.
provided this, it provided
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And even, you know, if some of it's providing the uniforms and
Mm-hmm. Right.
things that, you know, you'd say, do we really need that? Well, that's why we have
Right.
volunteers.
Right,
So
yeah.
you want to have a station that is
Right.
one that, you know, has good camaraderie
Right.
and, you know, is well-equipped to
Right.
be comfortable.
Yeah,
So I
Yeah,
think that it all
absolutely.
could be a really,
Yes.
it's all a real
it's a
positive
plus,
thing.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and you know, and
without
I-
the information,
Yeah.
you fill in the blanks with, you come up
Right.
with.
Yeah, and I
other
think
things.
that's, you know, I think that's probably one of the things that we probably have, you know, not done a good job in promoting those extra things that we buy that, you know, makes us really the department we are. You know, because, you know, so like Matt, when he joined from Williston, it was like, you have a 12 lead? Yeah, we have an auto pulse too, and it's like, you know, that's unheard of, you know, but, you know, and we always, and some of the times in the past, we've had people want donations made anonymously,
And that's okay too,
you
yeah.
know, and it's,
dollar amount.
oh, yeah, yeah, well,
that
what
would
you
be
see is
helpful.
right, yeah, and the dollar amount is nowhere near what everybody thinks it is. I mean, because for so long, we didn't have the coin drop. You know, if we made $500 a year, that was probably a lot for probably 10 years, I'll bet. And the other part of it is it's very hard to fundraise. I mean, Tom knows, you know, it takes a lot of work to fundraise. Well, when you're spending the number of hours that we spend mandatory training, you know,
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think regardless,
oh yeah,
you look at every other budget line basically has two sides. They have the expenditure side and the revenue side.
Yeah.
So if you get grants, I mean, Frank gets grants.
Yeah.
Or you get speeding tickets.
Right.
That's should be in
Overweight
there.
permit.
It is.
Overweight
Right.
permits. So I think it is
Oh, yeah,
good
it's
for
a missing piece.
everybody just
Yeah.
to be able to see.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
Phil was right when he said the library. We've really
Right.
pushed the library to
Yeah, which is
show-
going to be easy enough for us to do. I mean, that's
Right.
not a big issue. Yeah. Yep.
And I think it's selling, it's not a bad, it's.
Yeah,
Right. Oh, yeah.
As the
Yep.
department expands here, and as we talk
Right.
about an ambulance, this
Yep.
is gonna be very valuable to have
Yep.
as data
Yeah, and
instead
the,
of
you know,
hearsay.
good thing about an ambulance service is the revenue it does generate. You know, it's considerable.
Yeah.
It's considerable amount of revenue they generate. That's why so many towns are clamoring to try to come in here, because truthfully, they make money off us. So, you know, but I will get that together and
That would be good. I
give it to
think.
Renee, and we can footnote
Yeah.
it. And the other thing you and I had talked about is making sure we get that revenue side showing, like some of the insurance reimbursements we've had.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because unfortunately had a bunch of things we had to get reimbursed for, you know.
Yeah,
so.
no, I think that.
And they
that's
show
good,
up
so-
in the expense side on the maintenance.
Right, but you're not seeing it
But you
on
don't
the other
see it
side.
over as a
Right.
footnote that we got a bunch of money
Yeah.
because it was a,
And sale of vehicles and.
yep, sale
So
of the
on a
sale of the
piece of equipment
SCBA's,
that's given to us, like the 12 lead or the auto
auto
pulse, or Frank, I think you said there were items that we don't need, but were
No,
given to us,
I
and it's
don't want to
nice.
say they don't need, what I think is they're great because of our rural, where we are and all of that. It's a great tool that, would we have asked
So-
the town for 15,000 to?
Right, so,
to buy the
but
one?
we have them through the generosity of however they came to us. So
Right.
taking a page out of Caleb's book, in 5 years when the manufacturer doesn't support them, or do we
Right.
replace them? Or do
Right.
we now not have them?
we already did replace them. That was an association and fundraising.
We upgraded
Yeah.
to the newer.
Yeah.
that's-
But
Yeah.
will that eventually show up on the budget as something that's under an
It
equipment management?
probably would not, because down the road I'm assuming we will get to an ambulance.
Yeah.
But there's
And
other
that will
things.
be-
There's
right.
other things that are purchased that then do become items. And I think that's where it is really good
Right.
to have a true understanding of what the whole budget is.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it may not be the 12
Right.
lead, but 10 years from now,
Right.
it'll be some other piece of equipment that
Right.
would be really nice to
Yeah.
have. And I'm
Right.
not saying we shouldn't have
Right.
it, it's
Yeah.
just, we really need to know what it costs
Absolutely,
us to
yeah,
operate.
absolutely, because like I said, we've been our own worst enemy, because we've raised so much money, and, I can't even think how much money we've raised in 39 years I've been in the department, because all 5 trucks that we had, we'd raised money for. Never was tax money, so, but, any other questions?
Yeah, any others? Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Al.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda it's item 6, a discussion about the water source development agreement with Black Rock Construction. We touched on this last week. Andrea, you had a couple of questions, but I'm not sure. We talked to Eric today, and I don't know if he got those specific questions, but.
I didn't write them down to him, and I will do that, because I
Okay.
would like those
So,
answers.
This is a chance to sort of, everybody should, at this point, had a chance to look at it in a little more detail versus me telling you what I think it says. And maybe we can outline any specific questions that we might still have, so we can move forward. So this has been out in the public for a little while. And did you want to talk a little bit? The rumor, I don't think it's a real rumor, was that you were going to go out and have some testing done to the well. Maybe it should come up here. Just anything new?
The answer is yes. We're going to have Endyne do testing samples on the well water, and that should be happening this week. So I would imagine that they're usually pretty quick. So we'll get that back either later this week or early next, but certainly before the holiday. In talking to Eric, there haven't been contamination issues with the other test wells. So given their proximity, we would all be very surprised if if there was an issue.
Yeah.
But certainly we wouldn't expect to execute any sort of a document without that water testing results.
And I think there was a question last time about, will it need treating and all that? I assume it's gonna be fairly similar to what we've had, but you never know, and it makes sense that for both sides to like, well, what do we, at least get a preliminary test.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Before we, go and spend more money. Yeah.
We've set up our system based on what the hardness is of the existing wells, yeah.
So there may be, depending, it could be more efficient or a little less efficient to treat it to the same level.
Yeah, and I don't know if, it's my understanding that the initial reverse osmosis train is sort of at its capacity, and part of the reason for the quantities
Minimum
that
quantity,
Eric wants to see is that really this becomes hyper efficient at that 150, 160 mark because it justifies bringing on a second train. So, and I don't know if that runs off the same level of treatment or if you can run it differently. That would be an Eric question.
I would imagine that if this was to come online, it would mix with the
With
water
the-
coming out of the
coming
well
out of the
before
well.
it goes into the system.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
So,
And that second train is just added capacity.
yeah,
Or they may go back and forth too with them.
we're on high water engineering math above my pay grade.
Were there any, did anybody get any comments from the public or, did we get anything?
I haven't received anything.
Do you wanna, Andrea, just again, what specific questions you had, do you remember?
I remember one of Andrew's questions was one of my questions, and that was having an understanding of existing capacities for wastewater. And I did speak with
Oh,
Eric
okay.
about that this morning.
Yeah.
So,
He sent, I think, he sent me an email
okay,
about it. I think that's maybe in reflection to that.
okay, good. If someone could forward that to me, that'd be excellent.
Did he actually respond to that?
I forget what it was. It was an email and it had something on there, so.
I think I wanted to see the steps of all the process of everything that has to get done after we know that we have the right quantity. So what's the schedule? What's the tests, this testing? What are the permits? So we see what the whole scope of work and process is of what we're embarking on, which will be similar to what we did for the last one, but I
Right.
just think it would be good to have it all spelled
To
out.
be, I think
Yeah.
so. Well, I mean, regardless where we get the water from.
Right.
It would be good to know this is the, the
So if-
plan, that you
Right.
would follow.
Right, so, part of bringing on a new well is the source, but then there's all those other costs, what's the upgrade to the treatment system going to be? So when we're looking at this, what are we looking to commit ourselves to for
And
the
that
whole
was
project?
I had remembered that question that you had, and so I'd reminded Eric of that, and he's working on that.
Okay,
He said it'll take
yeah.
a little bit longer to get all of that information.
And I think one of my questions would be, in the interest of savings for all parties, understanding if there is, whether there are exploratory dollars in the budget that can be allocated, but once we open this up and we're going to move in a couple of phases. So the first phase would be, we're going to bore the existing hole out to 8 inches, and then we're going to pressure test it. And if at that point we're seeing, 150, 180, 200 gallons a minute or more, then it'll be a good idea to sort of evaluate at that point how to proceed, because our scope of what we're required is, or what we're agreeing to, is an 8-inch drill down to, it's another 200 feet beyond where we are, down to 700 feet. But in order to meet municipal standards, the town is going to have to go to 12-inch and concrete case to bedrock. So it's likely we'll want to have a conversation at some point mid-process so that we're not duplicating efforts, and that we're working together to get done what we need to get done. Hindsight being 2020, I should have drilled the 8-inch hole. And some of that's on us. When we drill a test well, we oftentimes we just send them out and do 6 inches, but we're usually drilling for a couple of houses. So that was a mistake on our part, which we'll pay for. It does seem like working in conjunction with the town, sort of after this next step, if it looks like there's really going to be something there. And my understanding from Eric is there were some funds floating around that were for exploratory.
There should be some capital funds there.
So if
reserve funds for this purpose.
if those can be allocated to work in conjunction, then we could probably overall save some money.
Yeah.
So get this straight, what you just said, the town's required to go 12 inches to bedrock, 12-inch casing?
Correct. So what we're signing up for is the 8-inch test well to 700 feet to get to X gallons of water.
Right.
The municipal code or the state standard requires a 12-inch hole that's all sealed in concrete that goes from the surface to bedrock. So that's you don't have that at your house. You're pretty much, I forget what the trigger is. It's like 25 units or something like that. Triggers a municipal system. So this will have to meet a different standard, and that has to do with water quality. It has to do with how the well is actually constructed, and then also pump down requirements.
Right.
So
I'm just wondering, so you're gonna drill an 8-inch hole, and then you're gonna drive 8 inches of casing down?
well, that's where
Right.
that's where working together could.
Right.
And because otherwise you're going to have to go back in, bore out, tear out all our casing, this. It would make sense, given the arc of time on this project, that we, take the time to do the process in a way that it's
Right.
most cost efficient for all parties.
That's why we need
exactly.
to see it all.
Yeah, it would be
yeah,
good, yeah,
I don't
I think,
disagree.
a plan, sort of a plan or a roadmap that sort of says, assuming everything, and here's a spot where we stop and go and evaluate, and here's a spot, and then, where, here's what you guys are doing, and then we take it over. It'd be good to sort of see that. And really a sort of high level, doesn't have to have a lot of detail or exact cost, just rough. Because at some point, the consultants will need to come in, our engineers, and,
I
start
think
planning
I
it
think
all
at
out.
the first time around we were just drilling to see
Yeah,
if we found
yeah,
water. I think
yeah.
that this second time around we're much closer to the mark. We'll coordinate with
Yeah.
Eric to have whoever needs to be there and evaluating
Yeah.
And I think that if we can figure out a way to sort of develop the site all at the same time or in some sort of collaborative effort, then it's going to make your job easier in going and getting it permitted because, with the exception of piping it to the facility, all of the sort of boxes are checked as far as the installation goes. So,
The actual drilling of the well may be the least cost of everything that we have to do.
oh, yeah, I think running the pipeline is.
Well, not only the pipeline, but just the 12-inch casing, all of that part. It's finding the water is, we can't do anything without that.
Right.
But in terms of our costs and the time that it's taking, these next steps
Yeah.
are really important to
But,
know.
but the casing, you're gonna do that anyways. The piping is a reflection of how far away you are from where you're going.
Right.
well, and that's.
And then the train and all that's fixed, no matter what anyways.
And I think the reason for the all of the language in this document surrounding estimated permitted yield is that it was my understanding from Eric, he really wants to see that 200 or 200 plus raw, because once this is over 100, then it's worth, and even if you had to do it in conjunction with another well, it gets you more than 50% of the way to your next tier of water. So that was where those numbers came from. And I would anticipate that before the town invested a nickel, you'd want to see that raw flow
At a certain point.
at that minimum threshold.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, you are making an investment in something that hopefully solves all the problems, but at minimum is solving, you know, more than half the problems. So you're not, you know, wasting money. And you know, where everybody's optimistic for this well, I think that, I mean, the Wayner well was like the mother lode, but I know there have been other test wells, Doug, that haven't produced even to what this one's
Yeah.
producing at 6 inches and 480 feet. So, you know, we've all got our fingers crossed.
I guess one question I have is checking with Eric. I think is going to be important because if we're going to pull a 6-inch casing and then go with an 8-inch casing after drill an 8-inch hole, then we have to pull that and drill a 12-inch hole. It seems kind of
It's a lot of redundancy.
it does. So does it make sense to
And money.
instead go with the 6-inch bore, the extra 200 feet?
It won't push.
Oh, okay.
So we are at max, or I would have kept going. So 480, we're at max, and you know, there's a lot of pressure down there too. But Frost seems, part of the reason I'm optimistic is the well driller's optimistic. So that's
Right.
what, you know, sort of gives me. He thinks going to 8 inches will pick up another 30, 40 gallons a minute, just widening the thing out without going another inch. And then, you know, we don't know, depending on how much pressure there is, you know, 12 inches to bedrock and 8 inches down, however many feet may even push that calculator higher.
Right. And how deep was bedrock?
It's about 80 feet on the site.
Oh, that's not okay.
No, it's not too bad.
Okay.
So, no, it wasn't,
I was thinking there's like a couple hundred feet of casing.
no, it
Okay,
wasn't
80's not-
anything too
okay.
crazy.
Are there any more questions? So I think the next step really is to have Eric come.
And potentially, well, Eric, and to make sure that the, you know, we get any information we need from the engineer on, that we haven't overlooked anything else in the
Like a
process.
review of it.
Yeah.
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 So when do you want to discuss this next? Our next meeting is December 18th. Again, I mean, between
Budget
here
time.
and through June,
Yeah.
January, is budget focused, but
I mean, it sounds like you've got the next step you're working on anyways.
water quality testing
Yeah.
to, as soon as I have it, Eric will have it. And they'll circulate it. That's sort of a pass-fail item. I think what's probably a good focus is gathering the data that you folks need, you know.
You'll want to sign the agreement to go ahead and.
You sign the agreement, I'm gonna have somebody out there.
So really, it's.
Although, let me take a step back. If we enter into the agreement, I think before we drill anything, the next logical discussion
coordination.
will be coordination and how, and that may mean a trip for Eric back to the select board to say, hey, you know, we've talked to the engineers, we've talked to BlackRock, we've sort of agreed on this threshold, we'll go 8 inches so far.
Yeah.
And if we hit this break point, then we want to spend exploratory funds
Right.
to drop the 12 inches, the 80 feet, because that makes sense. But that's so many what ifs, it doesn't make sense to bake into this agreement.
Right.
So I think that's probably.
But I want to know what all those what
Yeah,
ifs
right,
are.
yeah, yeah,
So we want the
No, absolutely.
roadmap, really, we
Yes.
want the roadmap. And with the roadmap, and I think a chance to ask Eric and or the engineers, and some rough costs, just so we know, then, you know, then we can move forward with the agreement, I think.
so why don't,
wait until, I was going to say, maybe we should just wait until after the first.
Or we could, I could be checking in with Eric between now
And see when he's
Yeah,
ready.
yes,
They could at
yeah.
least share the information with us when he gets it.
Right.
But we may not actually, have a sit down and discussion until after the
The
budget.
18th is a week away, but,
Yeah.
But I could check in with him, and we are not going to be finalizing the agenda until Friday, so, between now and then, if he has the information, and looking at the agenda, if we feel like we can fit it in. You guys have had this in front of you, this is what, the second week? I think we talked about it initially, and then last
got
week
the
was
final
the first
copy.
time you actually saw the draft as a whole board.
But the discussion's been going on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I think on the, obviously we want the roadmap, but the board should be looking at that agreement, understanding the process it went through, and if there are any specific questions with it, we'd want to raise those now, so that if there aren't, and people are comfortable with it, we can put that aside and do the first steps, rather than do the next couple steps and then say, well, let's go back and
Right.
hash out the agreement.
And we've put
So
a
we
lot of
wanna-
effort.
We want to hash that out now.
Yeah, the agreement would be good to
Yeah.
sort of get behind us.
Right.
On where I completely can appreciate where Andrea's coming from. Those sorts of facts and figures are, what we call on our private side of the table inevitable. They just are. So I think the agreement, or the language in the agreement is more of a variable that if we needed to go back and address something, and trying to get attorneys to do anything in the last 2 weeks of December is like, forget it.
And I think we've had them reviewed enough, unless there's a specific question.
I think we could have bought a used car for what
Yeah.
we've spent on attorneys
Yeah,
on this
we tried
one.
to make this a very open process. We
Yeah.
brought in a lot of people reviewing the information, and then we've had it out in the public meeting packet.
It hasn't changed a whole lot, to be honest.
It's a little cleaner. That's
It's a
about it.
little
Yeah.
cleaner,
Yeah.
but those numbers that we were discussing earlier have actually held true since, for 8 months.
I
The
think we-
numbers haven't changed.
Yeah, I think as it went on, we started to overthink it sometimes, and we got it a little
Everybody
more
added a
complicated.
little.
Yeah, and then, once we looked at it again, we started to make it more clear.
Yeah, and I think defining permitted versus yield, that, okay, here's the yield, but what's permitted by the state? That was a big clarification, that make sure everybody understood that.
Well, and the biggest what we even went back around with on that last pass, that it's important for everybody to understand is that process-wise, assuming we drill and assuming we get water and so on and so forth, the allocation requests that we come back to this board with will be based on an estimated state permitted yield, not a state permitted yield. And that estimated yield is 50% of whatever's at the wellhead. So if there's 300 gallons per minute at the wellhead, we're calling that a 150 gallon well. And then that's where our percentages kick in. So we would get, I think it's 30% of that 150 towards our allocation. So that's what's important, because it'll be this board that we're right back in front of when we make that application. And so we are making that against an estimated water source. And of course, the caveat is that our eventual zoning permit issuance is subject to the water coming online.
So I guess what I would like to see is, rather than get caught up in the minutia of what it's gonna cost to develop the well, we're actually working on just the contract with BlackRock. Because we've spent several $1,000s looking for wells in an effort to find water, which we knew we were going to hook up to our system if we found a sufficient amount of water. We're actually at the point now where we have sufficient water, we think. So I'd like to see us move forward with the agreement and see where that takes us, rather than get caught up in the numbers of what it's going to be to develop it. Because we were on board with that with the other wells we drilled.
I'm not sure I wanted the numbers. I just wanted it to be, and this is the time to.
But yeah,
I
you're doing
think-
budgets.
we're doing budgets and the time to just outline what all the steps are.
Oh, I don't disagree. I
Okay.
just don't want to get caught up in those numbers overtaking what the agreement is. Because we know we need water, and we need water fast. So I think this is a good opportunity, and the quicker we move on the opportunity we have, the farther we're gonna get.
I don't disagree.
Well,
I
given-
think, and what Andrew's asking for, we'll just get the roadmap and then, we'll say, we have this agreement, let's move forward.
Well, given where we're at in this process, it would seem highly likely that we would get a bead on where complete our work sometime in the first quarter, which would mean that if there was budget allocation for the work that needs to be done in the next fiscal year, the timing would seem to be good there.
Okay, any other comments?
Do we so we don't really have a timeline as to when we might actually sign the agreement? We're looking within the next 2 meetings, we're looking at early January.
I would think in January,
I think the beginning.
yeah.
Just give him time to get the information from the lab, get it to Eric, get this roadmap done.
And I'd
So,
like to
the
sit with
beginning of-
Eric and just sort of go, get his input on it a little bit. But as far as the wording goes, I'm happy with the wording. So the idea of the last 2 weeks was to give everybody else a chance to see it and raise any questions that there might be.
So our first meeting in January is January 8th.
We could shoot for that, yeah.
Shoot for January
See
8th.
if Eric can have everything ready for that. And he can also, which we've had a little bit of discussion of where we are on the actual, where we stand today after fixing the leak. He's still
Yeah,
trying to pull some
right.
of that together. That would be just good to know, just general good information.
It would be good too, so we can have the time to study it as the information comes
Yes.
in. The
To
select
give it
board,
to us, yeah.
select
Yep.
board get it immediately rather than waiting till
Yeah.
the
Yep.
week of the meeting.
Okay,
I think
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
especially,
yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
good, yeah.
I'll plan on it was
The 8th?
The 8th of January.
record week for me. I've got the 4th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 11th. Perfect. And if you need anything or you want to discuss it at all next week, just let me know. I'm
All
happy
right.
to come by.
Yeah,
All right,
Perfect, thanks.
thank you.
yeah. Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the town report distribution and printing. We had a few options we talked about. I think Renee's got some more information, investigated some of the options, and do you want to just?
So I didn't investigate it. I had Cheryl check into it for me. And so this is something that Williston does. They have it as an insert in the Williston Observer. And it just has the actual information that you have to have that's required. So it has the warning on the front. It has a basic version of the budget. And then it has the school insert page of that. And so it's just very, very general, just a very brief look. And then it,
6 pages?
so of town, it's 4 pages, and school is 4 pages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So that gets mailed to everybody.
that gets mailed. That gets in.
It gets in the
in
newspaper.
the, in the
right,
newspaper,
right,
so it
yeah.
doesn't mail, but
Right.
it's an insert in the newspaper.
Which everyone gets.
Yeah,
So
and
we would do it in the Citizen
Yeah.
or the Hinesburg Record.
and then they print off 250 hard copies that are available at the town hall.
And they print them themselves at town hall?
No, I think they have a printer
Oh, okay.
that does it, so it's done just like ours.
Oh, okay.
So they have 250 copies, hard copies, that are available to be picked up.
And I suggested if we were to go this way, the front page, we could add a little more information, like you can see the whole thing online, go to the website. Maybe something like, this is the first year we do it this way, that there are the printed booklets available at the town hall. and will be available, I assume, at town meeting.
Yeah, whatever. Again, the price per unit goes up each time we go
It's
down
not
on
a big
that.
savings.
But, so it's not the savings, that's, okay, I think the same reasoning we had before. It's not the savings as far as dollar amount, it's the reduction in waste.
And, you know, we were talking, we don't know for sure, we'd have to get but by reducing from 500 to 250, you gotta save something. It probably would be enough to print out the page and put it in as a flyer. Seems like a pretty good
Yep. And then,
middle ground.
And then there was discussion about the hardcovers, you know, the actual full report being available in more places.
Yep, so that's what we talked about, you know, of what we did last year. So we just had it in the places that we posted agendas. If we're gonna go a small amount as
Yeah.
Williston, then it's probably, doesn't make sense to put them other places than at town hall. But if we're doing what we did last year,
How many
I mean,
did we do last year?
we did 500 last year.
I mean, how
So
many
we've
have
gone
left?
down a little bit. We really used up most of them last
Yeah.
year. But I mean, we brought them to town meeting. They were at the open house for the highway garage, and I did end up bringing them to Kelly's Field just for any elderly people that weren't able to get out. But then the rest of them were just at the locations that we had the agendas. And if anybody called, we were,
Yeah. I think this
Recommendations.
year, you know, we would maybe err a little bit on printing a few more so we don't run
That's
out.
what I was thinking.
You know, but I would think we wouldn't have to, going this route, we may not have to try to have as many outlets as possible. Maybe just a couple outlets, you know, maybe the library or you know, here for sure, but
Well, I think what we heard last year, of course, in addition to, where'd you have them last year? Library, here,
library, post office in here.
post, so you did have them at the post office?
Yeah.
We heard
Yeah.
Lanton's was another one. People were
right.
wanting
But
it out.
now everybody's gonna get their thing in the mail, right? Before all they got was a postcard.
True.
So now you're gonna get the basic
You're gonna get
information, and you know,
I guess it depends on what they wanted, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
right?
I guess at that.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, different people have different opinions on the town report. So some people, it's a historical document to them, it means a lot. They keep them and save them. Other people, they end up in the recycle bin before they actually open the pages. And so there's a wide variety of opinions.
Marilee?
I would tend to think that if everybody's gonna get this flyer, we only need to have the thick ones at the town hall. I wouldn't think we need to distribute them to various places, that's my opinion. And then the question is how many to print of the big ones.
Right.
Was the newsprint option explored, or?
I didn't in price wise, but I did, I knew Cheryl had showed me one. This isn't the one. This is an older version that Williston did. So they did it on newsprint type paper, but they made a booklet out of it. For whatever reason, that only lasted 1 year. They didn't repeat it again after that. So this was 2001.
And it probably the cost isn't maybe in the mailing.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking more of just a regular newspaper style.
Right.
I
The way
wasn't
that the
talking-
grand list is.
And I really
Right.
think I saw one. I thought it was Cheryl that showed me, but she doesn't think so. So I don't know if it was Starksboro or to look around. I thought someone had it, but when she did her checking around, she didn't find anything other than this.
I would like to just explore that, because I think you can, I know, I see the value in that some people appreciate, but I think by trying to hold on to it, I think we're missing something. As much as people value it, and I know you can do color printing on the newsprint, and I'm just open to options.
It may be that mailing it is an expense.
Well, it's going to be an expense, but it's not. It's something that we should be able to readily get. I mean, we know what the Citizen and the Hinesburg Record are spending during every publication.
Right, but I guess there's the idea that you can toss that in the recycling bin just as easily as this. So what are we saving by putting it on newsprint?
Well, I think the printing of this, of the old style
This one
town
actually,
report is, I bet that's quite costly.
Actually, this one doesn't have any color inside.
Ours doesn't either.
Oh, it
Our-
didn't? I thought ours had a few
No, only
color.
the color, it's only on the
Oh,
cover, inside
okay.
and outside cover.
Okay.
And the inside pages are all black and white.
Yeah, I mean, I agree we should get it'd be good to have a price on that. But I think the mailing cost is substantial, not just the printing.
And the idea of the little flyer is it would go into the record?
I mean, yeah,
Or the-
we
or
could
the
check in to
citizen.
see if they would do the same sort of thing, which I would suspect
Yeah.
they could.
Yeah, I think they used to do that in California. It looks very familiar.
Uh-huh.
It's nice and clear, easy,
Yeah.
very accessible.
Well, I mean, I think it would be helpful to make a decision,
Uh-huh,
and if we're ready to make a decision.
right.
And I hear what you're saying, Tom, but so this is the second time I've got to look at this. Maybe we can wait another week and make a final decision for people to sort of, get the feeling for it. But it feels like, geez, if we nailed that out, everybody's gonna get it,
Yep.
get something. And, it's enough to go to the town meeting with, cause you're gonna at least see everything that's warned. And then, that satisfies
You
the,
make equal amount of what we made of those last year, make
Yeah.
them available, and then see how they go and see what people say,
And have it available online.
and have it available
Yes.
online.
I mean, this certainly doesn't cut out the work, this is more work for the person who's doing it. It's just the savings or the waste that we're
the waste.
reducing.
And
being-
less mailing.
And being
costs.
responsive to what people want.
Right.
I don't understand, which is more work?
Well, doing it this way, so if you're doing you're putting the work into creating this, and then you're also
Making
creating
a
this.
synopsis.
I don't think this is gonna be a lot, I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
really,
it's
it's duplicative of some of the pages in here, so
Right.
I don't think this.
But you're doing two things rather than one.
Yeah, but I mean, as I look at this, it looks like it's really just a representation of some of the budget pages in
Yeah.
here, so I don't think,
It's a little bit of work.
I guess I
but
can
it's
take
not-
that back, that this probably, doing it this way and this way really isn't a lot of additional work, because I think that this is just, it looks to me like these are probably just pages
Yes.
taken just like they were in the.
And
town
potentially
report.
those could be printed anywhere.
Yeah, right. So,
Do we have to check with the school district about how they're gonna do their budget?
yeah, I guess that would be, I mean,
It would be good to have.
to have
join
coordination
them.
if they,
Yeah, yeah,
if we wanted to do something like this.
yeah.
So, obviously, I mean, this is a Williston Town School District, so this isn't,
Because it's last year before we merged.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
So how are they planning on
Yeah.
doing theirs?
Right. I have put in, I've reached out to the school district. I just want to check on, see where they're at with their budget process, so I can ask that question when they
Is that- Are
respond.
you okay with that, asking them?
Yeah.
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 So do we wanna, maybe, it might be worthwhile for everybody to sort of think about it for a week and we can,
Ask around to our favorite
Yeah.
people who we know
Right.
care.
who could that be?
Give us a report.
All right, any other questions on this?
Is that timeline work okay for you, Renee?
Yeah, so we'll put it back on the agenda for next week.
Very brief,
A
yeah.
brief one, yes.
For a
And make a
decision.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next item on the agenda, Town Administrator Report. I think
Yeah,
Saw
I guess I
that
don't
in
have a
there.
lot to report. It's been a very active week with budget work, and I guess it's only Monday. It's not been a week yet.
Yeah.
It's been a long Monday, but good. Everything's going well.
the hiring process?
That's moving along.
I'm
So
sorry, the interview process. Yeah.
it's moving along. So
And the word you used today with me?
um,
Promising? is that
promising,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, so you had a couple interviews today?
Yep. Yeah.
Couple more in a couple days, and then 3 or 4 more.
Yep. So we have some tomorrow and some Wednesday. So that was good. Guess I don't really have anything else specifically.
Okay, Select Board Forum?
I guess I'll bring this up. Mike Anthony took an initiative to contact a hauler about the potential of locating at up at the Highway Garage drop-off center site for the
time that we're doing construction, and it seems they were in favor of doing that, agreed to do that, to be there on a Saturday, and we could advertise the hours. And my concern, I thought that was a great idea. I also thought we could potentially expand it and maybe set aside a spot where we could accept Christmas trees. I know that's something that people really do look forward to. And that since we have a chipper, we could maybe find some site, and then there's the possibility of chipping that. I didn't ask Mike about that yet. So I think that's a great idea. My one concern was whether we would be violating any agreement with the solid waste district, and I don't think so. I read through the bylaws. I spoke with Lynn Gardner, our representative to the solid waste district. He was going to, I think he was going to probably mention it to the general manager, and Renee potentially could also check in with them. And my concern was whether we should ask for proposals from another hauler. I mean, we're basically giving someone an opportunity to collect however many bucks a bag they're going to charge to be there. So I thought, I'm not quite sure how we would go about doing that, whether we would I mean, there are several haulers that do business in Hinesburg. And I don't know recall what the wording was when the solid waste district put it out for proposals, whether they were seeing who was going to offer them the most money so they could, or how it was. But so I would just like to see what other people's thoughts on that, whether we need to go to ask another hauler for their proposal, or find the best deal, whether somebody's going to charge less per bag.
I guess the first question I have on that is, do we have any kind of policy on that we have enacted in terms of putting something,
Well, we're not exactly putting it out to bid,
right?
other than we can see who would charge less for our residents to collect it. So if one hauler's going to charge people $5 a bag and somebody else will do it for $4.50,
Yeah.
is that the criteria that we use? I mean, what criteria are we using to choose who would do it?
I don't quite understand what the proposal is. Is somebody is there a hauler going to take bags from the old
No, the hauler
site,
would
or go
just
to people's homes?
No, the hauler would just be located up at the highway garage, and you would bring your trash bags up there just the way that you have, and would be paying the hauler directly.
And you
So
think
they-
people,
And the
Truck in and
recyclables.
truck out.
They put it right in there.
They put it in their truck and they take it away at the end of the day.
okay, and you think people would rather do that than drive to Richmond or Williston?
I think it would be a nice
Just
service to
provides an
offer.
option.
I think
It's
so.
an option. I mean, people can make a choice, but if you don't want to leave town, you could do that.
Is it going to be less expensive to do it yourself? It would seem so.
Maybe.
Well, maybe, it depends on what the hauler charges at that, and that's why I'm saying we're in a position to try and
Help the situation.
help the situation. Help the situation by somebody being here. It may actually be more expensive, but it's more convenient.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're letting people make a choice, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
I mean, an hour and a half on a Saturday, I'd pay an extra $1.
But it's going to be more expensive than it was when we just had the recycling.
We
and
don't
the
know
landfill.
that.
We don't know that for
I
sure.
see.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so my thought on it is, one, I think it's a great idea. The other one, we want to make sure we're not violating anything. It doesn't sound like we are. We want to make sure that it's clear this is a temporary
Yes.
solution, because our expectation is we'll get CSWD back here with as much of a service as we can, besides just trash and basic recycling, right? They also do light bulbs and all that other stuff. So we, yeah, and it sounds like Mike is doing this as a a good thing for the town. I mean, it has nothing to do with his town garage.
No.
And so to ask him to go out and get bids, or somebody to get bids, is a little bit of work. And so, you know, to save 50 cents maybe on a bag, it's only a temporary thing. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. But what I wouldn't want to do is offend any other haulers
Exactly.
that are in town. So it sounds like we ought to put like a basic thing together that says, you know, for the next 2 weeks, we'll accept bids. And here's the space we'll give you. Here are the hours, you know, and Mike will have to work around, you know, if it's a snowy day and he has to move his
Right.
plows in and out, yeah, is that gonna work?
Yeah,
And-
he felt like he could make it work.
Okay, so maybe we just give them the basics and, you know, I don't know, you could even,
And basically,
See what people are gonna charge.
yeah, and maybe we hit the 2 or 3. There's Gothier's, there's,
Myers,
Myers.
and there's Casella.
yeah, so maybe we just do those
Ask the three of them,
3 things.
yeah.
And it sounds like it would come probably out of yours and between you and Mike.
And the criteria just being the lowest one?
No,
And who
I,
decides?
yeah, I would let Renee make the,
Mike.
yeah, hold on.
They can do that on trucks.
they
I
do,
was just thinking the ones that have the big roll-off dumpsters. would
but
be
they
the ones
can't
you
leave
want.
them there.
Yeah,
I know they can't leave them, but
Yeah.
they'd have to pick them up.
Right.
But I just don't know if Gothier's has roll-off dumpsters or not. I don't think they're gonna go park a trash truck and leave it.
I think they would be there,
For the day
they'd
they
be
might.
there and
For the
collect the
day,
fee.
they have to be there
So
to
they
collect the
stand there
fee.
and they go, give me $4. Throw it in the, you know, they throw it in the truck.
Could be, I guess.
A lot of towns do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Flash trash.
over on the other side of the state, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right,
So if Renee would be willing to do it, and then I would say, you know, I'd be all right with Renee and with Mike's input, deciding who, because somebody might be 50 cents cheaper, but they have better facility and, you know,
Right,
they'll provide a
right.
better service, so.
Right.
I'd
I just
let
think
them
it's
make a
important to
decision.
give other haulers the
Yeah.
opportunity.
I would hate to offend somebody who hasn't had the chance. And I think the bid, you know, the scope of work or the bid package can be really simple. Here's the space, here are the hours. You know, you gotta do, minimum is trash and
Recycling.
mixed recycling.
And
Yeah.
we're thinking just Thursday, same hours kind of.
Saturday.
Saturday,
Or Saturday, sorry.
Yeah.
Saturday, same hours.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think otherwise it might interfere with.
sure.
Yeah,
Sure, that makes
right.
sense.
Sounds good, I think it's great. Anything else for a select board forum?
All right, we've got a quadra.
I know, it's coming, and it
getting
sounds like you
closer.
can go online to buy the tickets.
You can go online to buy tickets. Hinesburg Rec, I don't have the exact
It's on their website.
visit.
It's on the,
Hinesburg.org,
it's on
go
the
to the
town
rec
website,
page.
Yep.
the rec, yeah.
That's gonna work out great. We've got some terrific auction prices. They're coming in hot and heavy now, so we've got that. Food is getting lined up. All the, you know, Papa Nick's, Good Times are all ponying up again. Dutch Mill back in line this year, so
Dutch Mill, good.
it's gonna be a great night. Get your tickets. You too, Marilee. I don't want to. Better make it.
Tom's gonna dance with any select board member who wants to dance.
I'm not going this year.
My wife's not either.
So is there anything from today that we want to put on our little front porch
Oh,
forum
that's right.
thing?
Question.
Good
I-
job.
I don't really see any.
Well, I was thinking we would mention that budget discussions have started and
Yeah.
name
That'd
the
be good.
departments.
Yeah,
I will say that we talked about the BlackRock agreement again, a sentence. I would suggest also an update, a sentence or so on the town garage plan,
Yep.
ongoing
Yep.
activity.
What would that update
What's
be
different
about the
now?
town
How's
garage?
different?
Because we
that
haven't
would-
really
I-
talked about it.
I leave that to Renee just to
Okay.
put
What's that?
something there.
Town garage. What
Oh,
would-
yeah.
Yeah, I always ask her just to put a line.
So what is the update?
I haven't checked in today, to see what's happening, but I know there's been a lot of activity and were you out there
yeah.
today?
I wasn't out there today, but last Thursday, they started
poured the
pouring
footings, yeah.
I think they're still working on the road.
It looks a lot different now.
It, yeah,
Yeah.
So those are the three that I was thinking of.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Do we want to put anything about that, or do we want to open up that as far as the town report and thinking about the delivery of it or how it's going to
Oh,
look,
maybe,
just to kind
yeah.
of get the feedback?
Yeah, that would be good.
Got to watch what you ask for, but
Yeah.
the idea is what we're trying to.
Well, we're trying to find a happy, a good medium, a good position to satisfy the needs for the
I
town
think it
report.
would be nice if somebody talked to Roger, because he's the one who brings it up every year.
I left him a voicemail.
Oh, you
so
did?
He'll leave.
Okay,
I'll be talking to
I
him.
can try to call him tomorrow.
I think he's out of town.
Oh,
Is my
Oh,
guess.
good time to do it.
Yeah.
Anything else for select board forum? All right, so the next item, review the minutes from our last meeting on the 4th of December. They were in our packet. Is there a motion?
I just started reading them.
Okay,
I'll make the motion, but with amendments, and I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 4th as amended.
I'll second that for you.
Okay.
get a second to look at it.
I started looking at the CCRPC updates, and we should probably spell out what the PAC is. Planning Advisory Committee.
Right, that would be good.
And it is the committee that reviews, it doesn't oversee, it is composed of municipal planners to review town plans and regulations that need to be approved. Well, let's see, I got to figure out how to is a subcommittee of the CCRPC that reviews municipal plans and Act 250 permits. And the Long Range Planning Committee, LRPC, reviews the regional plan that includes the ECOS plan, that reviews the regional plan known as the ECOS, ECOS. Got that, Val?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just going with what Alex had written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Andrea added that the Long Range Planning Committee reviews the ECOS plan and includes the MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Spell that out, too.
Yeah. And then the UPWP is the Unified Planning Work Program, I think. And is the work plan for the regional planning. And includes planning projects for the towns.
And I have a correction too. Merrily reported on the Clean Water Advisory Committee is looking at the Vermont Lake Champlain Northern Basin Plan is what it's called. Vermont Lake Champlain Northern Basin Plan.
I see the. You're good, Marilee?
Yeah.
Bless you.
Is that a yes or?
Yes, it was just not quite done, but I'm done.
Okay. So, the motion was made and some changes were made to the minutes. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
Maybe we
And-
should have waited to make this, to approve it at the next meeting since.
We could have, yeah.
Sorry,
Next time we will do
Yeah.
that. Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, I forgot to ask Renee during either select board or town administrator, is there any update on the health order? Anything new there? I know it was served last week.
Yeah, I haven't heard
I
anything.
wasn't sure if you had heard anything.
No, I haven't heard
I
anything.
just wanted to check back in on that
I
since that's a
know
deadline thing for the end of the
Kent
month.
was trying to reach out, but I told him to let me know if he hears anything, and I haven't heard from him, so.
That's all.
Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the warrants?
I make a motion to approve the warrants.
Second.
Okay. So I did approve the
Payroll, but I haven't seen
Yeah.
the,
Oh, she must have.
and she said they were gonna be here in her note to us.
Yeah.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
didn't see them.
So we can look
Maybe they weren't
afterwards.
done today? Do you know, Renee?
I assume they were. Does anyone have their key?
I do.
I do.
Run across.
Yeah, I have my key. And the last item we have is, if necessary, a motion to go into executive session. I don't think we have any reason to. So maybe we'll just wait a second for the,
For the warrants?
for the warrants. And so just as a summary from what I got on the budget stuff, at least the items that I saw, one was, there's a potential proposal to change the way we mow the rec field. And I think we asked for just a little more detail on what it would cost, just so we know. And potentially look at bidding out the rest of the mowing, the package. And I would talk again with Glenn Place on that, cemetery committee. That was on the rec. The police has a proposal to work on their salary, their hourly wages, and they have a couple of pieces in there that will require some discussion, I think. They described a few additions to equipment, and explained, how they were planning to, how they budgeted for those replacements. And then on the fire side, while no increases, we did ask for some detail on, what the,
cost of-
yeah, true cost, or, what they get for, the donations.
Right, so I just wanted to be clear, if Al, he was nice and everything, is he going to do that? Is he going to,
I thought he was gonna work on that.
okay,
That was my expectation.
so, maybe.
I heard him say he would give us a list of the equipment. I didn't really hear him say that he was gonna tell us what their revenue was.
Do you wanna go back to him to do that, or?
I will,
Okay.
yes, because.
Yeah, we're looking just for the last 2 years, and it doesn't have to be to the dollar, but, it should be
Well,
pretty close.
they really should have that information
Yeah.
because
It's a 401,
a 501c3, they
501.
have to be sending receipts
Acknowledgement
to
letters,
acknowledgement
yeah.
to their donors, so
they should have
it's
that.
basic bookkeeping.
I suspect that there are reasons that he'd rather we didn't know what that amount was.
Well, you didn't imply that.
No,
So,
he's,
and I suggested it would be good,
Yep,
that it's a positive. I think it
Yeah.
is.
yeah.
Okay, so we
I don't
have,
see- So this one is you and Aaron signed.
that's the payroll, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
But on this one, I don't see
so,
what she has marked as November 20th.
Okay, so I think, well,
Nothing this week.
for the, we just have the payroll warrants. And so if there's a motion to, all right, and seconded,
Or did you second it, Mary?
did.
all right. Any comments? I guess we'll find out why.
Al just texted me, he is going to get that information.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
he's always
Yeah.
watching.
That's right.
Good about that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So if we need to get him, we don't have to pull a fire alarm. We can just tell him to come.
We can just yell fire, so he's here, and he'll just show up.
So all those in favor of the motion to approve the warrant, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so that motion passed. Unless there's any other business, take a motion to adjourn. Tom?
Second it for you.
Aaron?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? We're good.
We don't have to pick up chairs.
Look at that, see?
This is great.
We
Yeah,
can
I
leave
think
it
this
as setup.